That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here,
And Blue Dragon 5.
and welcome to the show where we wax poetic about the movies we see on a month to month basis. It's time to crack open our
Movie
memoirs.
Memoirs!
All right, Dragon, we got a lot to get to. As always, I'm just going to put a disclaimer up at front in case you guys did not see my little video that I did with Peregrine. You will not be seeing Moana 2 out of basically like you're just not able to and probably not that interested in it. I will not be seeing Moana 2 out of fucking protest because Disney shouldn't be allowed to be rewarded for that little effort. So that's all I'll say about that. I'll check it out when it comes to Disney Plus, but I'm not giving it my money. Anyways, all right, Dragon, let's get to news. As always, we start off with deaths. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this. I figure once this actually closes, we can do like a proper retrospective on it. Although I'm sure we have done a retrospective on it on the past, but a final goodbye. It's not movie news, but it's kind of movie adjacent. Muppet Vision 3D has been announced to close at Hollywood Studios in favor of a Monstropolis land. We knew the Monstropolis land was coming. We just didn't know where, and it's confirmed it's going into Muppet Vision. And also, we lost the composer of Muppet Vision, as well as various classic Disney World attractions. Most prominently, I think, would be Horizons, George Wilkins. So I just want to give a shout out there. Dragon, any quick thoughts on the loss of Muppet Vision before we get into the actual deaths?
I mean, it's a bummer. I love Muppet Vision. I think like we all did. I hoped against hopes they would have it would have been like kind of like almost like a Muppet plot in which it was like deemed a historical landmark not going anywhere. But sadly not the case. I'm bummed out about it, but it's because I had a lot of attachment to Muppet Vision. But again, it's like Disney's not what it once was.
You can say that again. You can say that again.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Code Geass says Moana 2 doing so well is a bit disappointing, but I hope since it is doing so well, Frozen 3 gets rushed out. Code Geass, did you see that Frozen 2 documentary? We do not want Frozen 3 to be rushed out. We want them to take the Spider-Verse approach and take as much time as they need to on that thing.
Specifically, what the heck do we do next with the Frozen gang? Like that's the biggie. Like, well, we kind of plumbed it all. What now?
Right. I still think Fire Princess.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. We kind of, it's like, where do we, it's like now we're going to do it after the
Bring
second
on
one.
The Fire Princess, bro. Go full Avatar The Last Airbender on our asses.
Okay.
All right. Anyways, so let's get to the actual deaths. And of course, George Wilkins, definitely a pretty prominent theme park composer, but, this is a movie show, so we want to focus more on that. All right, Dragon. The two people that died this month that are very prominent. I got to admit, I'm kind of at arm's length with both of them, so you might have to do some heavy lifting here as far as the commentary goes. So Quincy Jones, what say you about Quincy Jones? And this happened literally like a day or two after our last Memoirs. It was pretty bad timing.
Yes, so Quincy Jones, legendary figure in the music world. This guy is a record producer, most notably a composer. He was he's very much involved in some of, like, for example, he was behind the scenes. He's very much the reason we have Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the show. Like, he was the one, he got Will Smith the audition. He got him the show.
Uh-huh.
So, he was heavily involved. He's very much a black icon of music, Quincy Jones. Like, he's well respected. He's lauded. He's basically he's kind of the John Williams of the African American community, very much so. But less, I mean, he did do some great compositions and composing. Maybe nothing that's kind of the earworm that, say, Star Wars or or a Superman is. But still, the fact is, like, he was there during all these great iconic kind of black soundtracks and just kind of like records and songs. And for example, Heat of the Night, he did the music on that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
my point, like, he was there during a lot of these huge moments in Black history. So Quincy Jones is very, he's very well known. Rashida Jones is his daughter, which I didn't know until I watched, and I recommend you watch this too. There's this great documentary. I assume it's still on Netflix, but who knows? It's called it's called Quincy. It's all about Quincy Jones and the man's all his reach and his impact and everything. And there's the documentary is very moving because Quincy Jones, he was in very poor health like throughout his life. He had this. He had a brain thing where basically he had a metal plate in his head, so he had to give up playing the trumpet because if he played the trumpet, it would loosen the plate.
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm saying. So and also
that
you and
makes
I,
sense that he would transition into producing.
yeah. Anyway, so point being, Quincy Jones plus towards there's the thing. Hearing that Quincy Jones passed away, I can't say it was a shock because as the documentary kind of shows, in the later years, he was getting up there. There were some issues.
Sure.
So with that, so I can't say it was entirely surprising, but it was like one of those things where you kind of hope against hopes, but eventually, his time's going to come. But the thing that you and I mutually know him from, I'm sure you might, kind of get a giggle out of. He had a really fun cameo in Austin Powers Goldmember.
Oh yes, of course, yeah.
Where Austin Powers, the best part of that movie is the opening of that movie.
Yep.
And after
that movie got a lot of really good bits. I don't care what anyone says. That's my straight up favorite Austin Powers movie out of the three.
I know that firsthand. Yep. Anyway, but yeah, so we had this wonderful bit where Austin he kind of goes to like the sound stage, and we have Quincy Jones doing some composing, and like Austin Powers shouts him out, "The wonderful Quincy Jones!"
yes.
Maybe Quincy Jones like, "Yeah, baby," and he's just looking up. It's a lovely little moment for Quincy Jones. It kind of puts a face to the legendary name, and was always appreciated.
I also know that he was an inspiration for Bleeding Gums Murphy on The Simpsons. I don't say this to cast shade on the death or anything, but Bleeding Gums does kind of have a significance because he was the first character on The Simpsons to actually die. So it's kind of a trippy sort of full circle thing here. Yeah, Little Blue. I already brought up George Wilkins, Country Bears, Sunny Eclipse. Yeah. Also, Little Blue, he did the music for Horizons, which I would like to think is kind of his magnum opus when it comes to theme park stuff. Seriously, the Horizon score is just sublime. Anyways. All right. Next up, we've got Tony Todd. I have not watched Candyman. I have not watched a Candyman movie.
I'm surprised because Candyman, I know you're not a slasher guy, but Candyman's kind of like the artful slasher. That one feels like it's really up your alley.
I should watch it at some point, but you're right. I'm just slashers, especially slashers that have a bunch of sequels, or just I'm kind of it.
Well, at the very least, you have the original Candyman,
Sure.
And I will never watch Candyman. Especially after learning, well, we'll get into it, but yeah, I learned a little about Candyman, serendipitously enough, and I mean, I already knew some surface level stuff, but I saw some clips in a documentary. It's like, okay, I'm never going to watch Candyman. It's too terrifying.
The body horror stuff that you're not down with.
It's not just the body, it's the bees, Tiki. It's like his
not the bees, Dragon, not the bees.
Exactly my reaction. Because I knew he had like a bee gimmick, but I didn't know he was like, he basically Candyman. He's very much a romantic, so he would go after essentially our friend Chris Dellard Norrell, he did a short basically Candyman seeking a bride, so he would have like a love interest per movie. So when he goes after the love interest, he's kissing the love interest, and the way he kisses the love interest is the most horrifying way you could ever kiss another human being in your life.
Oh God! Is it straight up like? Just a bee kiss, just bees going straight into her mouth.
That's the thing, Tiki. He has because it's like a weird kind of he's somewhat a corpse, somewhat honey. Because that's basically Candyman's backstory is that he was a slave that they poured honey on to torture him.
Oh Jesus Christ!
So that's the thing. So he
hard feather sort of deal.
Exactly. That's exactly that was the idea. So that was basically. So Candyman's actually in the tomes of Black history. He's very interesting in that he is the representation of he's kind of like the hanged slave come back to haunt you kind of a vibe.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so the point being, he would kiss the poor victim here, and she, basically it's like he's got. And Tony Todd actually one of the reasons he got the part, he was the only one crazy enough to actually have live bees in his mouth.
I mean, respect.
And here's what, you know what's so great? Tony Todd had a deal in his contract where he got paid extra per sting.
Oh, Jesus Christ, really?
So he made a lot of money during those movies. Anyway, so Tony Todd, this was close to home because I've been in the same room as Tony Todd a couple of times. He's been at the Monster Mania a lot for Candyman. And unfortunately, I never saw him because, you got to be choosy when you go to the horror cons and the Monster Manias.
Colby says I also spew out live bees when I kiss.
Wait, but that's genetic, though.
And I know that Colby canonically has a girlfriend, so that's kind of concerning. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, again, she needs higher standards, but Anyway, the point being, I've been in the same room as the man, and it kind of hit close. I was like, sort of like, oh man, I really should have said hi or something. I think I waved to him a few times. That's about it.
Yeah.
Could have done more there, but regardless, Tony Todd, also very renowned for his voice work. He's had some really great examples. The biggest one that I'm sure a lot of people would cite and rally towards is his last role, one of his last roles, Venom in Marvel's Spider-Man 2, the PS5 game.
Oh, there you go.
Which, again, he did a really good job playing Venom, by the way.
Oh.
But he played the non-comedic Venom.
Oh, man. Yeah, we need a non-comedic Venom movie, dude.
Yeah.
Since when was Venom like the fucking life of the party in the Spider-Man universe? Seriously.
It was somewhat of a refreshing change, but then we kind of kept doing it again and again. But anyway, also the big thing.
As far as the Venom like symbiote effects go, the Venom movies are fucking great. They just don't have that like primal monster energy that the comics are known for.
Again, I'm sure Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick's Venom movie would have done.
Yeah.
Anyway, did a really great turn on Venom, but before that, the thing I knew him most for was he played Zoom in The Flash.
Okay, that's a big one.
This was during the good seasons of The Flash, Tiki, way back. So you had 2 seasons of The Flash. He was our fill-in for. We didn't have the Reverse Flash as our main bad guy, so we had the next best thing, which essentially in the comics is the other Reverse Flash. It is Zoom. But that's the thing. What he did so well, what they did with the Zoom in the show, it was really good, is that they differentiate him, because that's the problem. In the comic, Zoom, it looks exactly like the Reverse Flash. Sometimes they even go by, it's very confusing. But here they made him, he's in a very different costume, and he's very intimidating. He's basically like the Flash's version of Bane, which was really cool. So the idea, this guy showed up, he beat the crap out of the Flash, and like went to Central CCPD and like showed, look at your battered hero. It's like this, he played him really cool. Anyway, so also thing no one ever brings up, he was in the early seasons of Chuck before we killed him off. He was one of the kind of the liaisons for him. He's one of the big government guys. Like, we need this Chuck
Levi.
Yeah,
Zachary Levi.
Back in the simple times, again, the Chuck era were the good times for Zach Levi.
Hey, MAGA people, it's me, the Flash.
Okay, let's.
I'm sorry. That's the second time in 2 nights I've made that reference.
I think you mean Shazam.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. I do mean Shazam. My bad. Yeah.
Anyway, point being, just the man had a charm to his menace no matter what the role was. There's a lot of power in his voice, and he kind of drew you in. So Tony Todd, just legendary, and he will absolutely be missed.
For sure. Let's see. Little Blue cites some stuff we already mentioned. Venom, Zoom. He also cites The Crow and appearing in the Orville, as well as Worf's Klingon brother in Star Trek, which Dragon and I are not Star Trek people, but that's cool.
I do watch the Orville, though.
You do. All right. Shout out to Sonia Pantoja. Indeed. All right. Moving on. Let's talk wolves. Yeah, because honestly, Dragon, this is kind of non-news, but we'll talk about it anyways. The movie flopped. Pretty much self-inflicted gunshot wound, because the studio, like a week before it came out to theaters, like, actually, we're not going to have it in theaters. But I guess we are not getting a Wolves sequel. Were you looking forward to Wolves 2?
Well, remember, I told you I saw
a big airplane movie.
Well, remember, I told you I saw the movie Wolves.
Yes.
And it was I like the movie Wolves, but the problem with that movie essentially ties into this, where it was left open ended for a sequel, which I feel was a mistake. Where you could have had a really good one off movie there. I think it's pretty solid, and then you get to the very end where they're jumping through hoops. There's a conspiracy, and then dot dot dot, which already didn't. It already didn't need. It already didn't need the dot dot dot, and now it's like, well, it's never going to get the rest of those dots. It just feels like it just feels really stupid. Where, John Watts seems like he'd be smarter than that. It seems like he'd be smarter to like have it open ended, like, and we're gonna end like Butch and Sundance. Like, no, we shouldn't end like Butch, especially if you're gonna do a sequel. Don't end like Butch and Sundance. If you're,
right.
Anyway.
Although, to be fair, Butch and Sundance didn't have a sequel. That I think that ending actually does hold up.
But... Well, that's the thing. I either commit to it or not. Whereas it feels like, okay, we're definitely leading to. There's going to be a continuation. If you want to have them be killed off, then just have it be like that. Don't have them killed off.
I could see them doing like an Apple Plus series, except George Clooney and Brad Pitt are probably like ungodly expensive on an episode by episode level.
Well, remember though, Apple's model was like, we're going to throw all the money at the celebrities just to get them and throw them into some show.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But also, let's be honest. I love George Clooney. What has he been doing lately?
Well, this.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, remember, he directed that rowing movie.
Oh my God, that's right. He did try.
He did the Nazi combatant.
Dude, can I just say George Clooney has been consistently one of the most fucking boring directors for me.
Well,
like,
okay,
his style is literally the equivalent of a fucking sleeping pill.
He did one solid movie. He did. God, I'm trying to. Wait. Good Night and Good Luck. He did Good Night and Good Luck. That was solid.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. Good Night and Good Luck was solid, and then
that might be the best.
Trash.
That's probably the best movie he ever did. Honestly.
Yeah, no, it's weird because that was his first movie, and he fucking kind of hit it out of the park on the first time, and then he's just been bunting ever since.
All right.
Anyways, okay, moving on. We have Ryan Reynolds' Mighty Mouse. You're the Ryan Reynolds guy, so why don't you talk about this? Do we have any director, writer, or anything attached?
I don't
studio even.
Yes, we do. We do have a studio. Okay, so Ryan Reynolds, his production company. Basically, Ryan Reynolds has a production company, which is now, I think, turned to, he has his own kind of service, but he's doing this through Paramount. So I think it's going to end up on Paramount, maybe both services, but it's going to be through Paramount. So that's the thing. So he's going to be, Ryan Reynolds is going to be the producer. They haven't said that he's going to he's going to play or voice Mighty Mouse yet. I don't think he will, because I think he's we've seen stuff like If this year where he's not like the lead in it, but he's been in it. So I'm unsure how that's going to go.
Not the lead in If, really?
Well, I mean, it's really the girls' movie. It's the girls' movie, and he's
okay. Yeah, I still
that's
haven't
what I'm saying.
Seen it. I'll get around to it.
I do I mean, it is. It has been out in a few places, so I don't know if it's like on Amazon yet or not, because it has.
Yeah,
been
I'll get around to it.
But yeah, I'd recommend If. Don't expect the moon, but I think it's a good time. Anyway, point being, say he's the producer on it, and it's he's been very solid in the producing thing, because If was solid. Beyond that, he's obviously, there was Spirited. There was, clearly he knows what he's doing with Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah. My
point being is Ryan Reynolds has made a lot of smart business decisions. So if he's bringing this back, I think he's bringing it back for a reason. He's like, look, let's Mighty Mouse has been gathering dust on a shelf, and plus in the past we brought back Mighty Mouse to kind of good reviews, like way back in the past though, like the whole kind of Beanie and Cecil kind of era.
I mean, we got fucking Ralph Bashki working on Mighty Mouse.
That's what I mean. So we've had that. So I mean, it's not entirely a crazy idea. I mean, if they're looking,
the one thing we need to have in a Mighty Mouse movie,
you want the flower, don't you?
What? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay, what do we need?
I do not know anything about Mighty Mouse beyond Andy Kaufman. So we need Here I Come to Save the Day.
You're right. Well, of course they're going to have... What are you, nuts? Of course they're going to have Here I Come. That's his theme song.
I mean, make a big moment out of it.
Yeah, they gotta.
Here I come to save the day.
Here I come to save the day.
Yes, Little Blue, you read my mind.
Anyway, but yeah, so... look, I'm looking forward. If Ryan Reynolds is back in this, I will give him the benefit of the doubt. But okay,
do you know if it's going to be animated or if it's going to be like a Yogi Bear, Woody Woodpecker type deal?
Now that I don't know. That they haven't said. They haven't said it's going to be fully animated. They said obviously the character will be animated. I don't know if it's going to be the character in the real world or if it's going to be, my instinct is that it's going to be the character in a live action world, but I don't know. I don't know.
All right, Kogias is asking who's Andy Kaufman. Kogias, I'm going to pull out a well-worn 2-word Lilo and Stitch line for you. Educate yourself! Seriously, look him up. He's a fascinating individual.
Yep.
All right.
Educate yourself.
Educate yourself! That quote is so fucking multifaceted. I love it.
I mean, should we? I mean, look, we didn't really get anything substantial, but have you seen any of the Lilo and Stitch stuff this month?
I mean, I'm waiting for an actual trailer. Obviously, I'm not hyped about it. Obviously.
Oh, there is something. I wonder if you saw it. Did you see the poster?
Yes, I do like the fact that they're going back to the parody stuff. That is cool. I appreciate that. I hope that they go full ham with that shit.
Do you think they should do like a Lion King one with the live action?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Oh my god, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah. It's so funny now because if you look at
go full ham, just have him invade all of the fucking live action.
Well, that's the thing. Think about it. Okay, if you look at the original Lilo and Stitch poster with him around all the Disney gears, all of those Disney gears have been adapted into live action. So they, in theory, could absolutely do that.
Indeed. Yeah, Little Blue is attempting to explain who Andy Kaufman is, but I think Kogias just needs to read his wiki, man. I think it's he is a very multifaceted individual. It goes way beyond just being an SNL cast member. And I don't even think he was technically a cast member, right? He was just a guest on the first show.
Yeah.
Is that right?
He was technically right? He was if you want me to answer, yeah, he was the musical guest.
Yeah. Well, one of them. Him and Billy Preston.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Anyways. Okay. Next up, we're going to go ahead and... Oh, no. Before we get to trailers, some genuinely really awesome news, Dragon. I am so stoked for this.
Tell the folks.
Conan O'Brien is hosting the Oscars.
Go.
I mean, in my heart of hearts, I wanted John Mulaney.
Yeah, me too.
But this honestly might even be better knowing Conan.
I gotta be honest. My hopes for the Oscar hosting was here's the thing. So, I was with you with John Mulaney, but then someone brought up like there were talks or rumors, murmurs of maybe a duet of Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman hosting the Oscars, which I didn't think it was going to happen. I wasn't. I would love that. Of course. I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I deluded myself into. Well, it is doing really well this year.
Yeah.
But regardless. The
Kokias, I genuinely hope you're kidding, because if you're not kidding, then this straight up might be the worst take you've ever had.
Man, you really don't like Jimmy Kimmel hosting, do you?
I fucking hate Jimmy Kimmel, period.
I didn't know you hate him that much.
I think Jimmy Kimmel is a critical fucking douchebag.
I thought you were indifferent to Kimmel. Really, I did.
No, I'm indifferent to Jimmy Fallon. I think Jimmy Fallon is tolerable. Jimmy Kimmel's a fucking douchebag.
Well, we learned who Tiki's favorite Jimmy is.
I just don't like how hypocritical Jimmy Kimmel is. Like, the dude literally started his career on the Man Show. And then he's acting all high and mighty. Anyways.
Oh, all right. Okay. Anyway.
All right.
Well, you should. Did you ever watch the BVS clip with Jimmy Kimmel in it?
No.
Oh, here's the thing. We should watch it because it ends with him getting thrown into space.
Oh, okay.
Seriously, you'd love it.
Like, again, with all your hot takes, I'm not going to shame you or think you're a bad person. But that genuinely, you wanting Jimmy Kimmel to host again, that genuinely might be one of the most wild takes I've seen from you. So more power to you, I guess. Okay.
I mean, I honestly, I just love Jimmy Kimmel's running gag with Matt Damon. So, he's... Anyway.
Colby says this year's Orcas are going to be so interesting. Conan hosting, no clear front runners. Very excited. Yes, because I know he corrected himself, but just imagine Conan O'Brien like with orcas just doing a full Free Willy routine.
Okay, but in all seriousness, this is really good for us. See, Conan was always historically he was shafted from the job that he should have gotten, so kind of
Oh
rewarding.
yeah, just a little bit. I lived through that shit.
So that's the thing. So rewarding Conan in even little ways like this goes a long way. Which, by the way, Tiki, did you ever see his Hot Ones?
Conan's Hot Ones?
Yeah, Conan. You got to watch Conan's. It was the most epic Hot Ones they've ever had.
Ooh, okay, I'll have
Seriously,
to.
it was like their season finale, in quotes, season, like however you mark it off. But essentially, it was like their big finish, and it was like unbelievable. You have to see what Conan does.
Give Joe Coy the job? I don't know. He'd be all right, but
he's not Oscar. Come on, who are you kidding? Joe Coy's not Oscar material.
I mean, again, Mulaney, dude. Mulaney.
Yes, Mulaney. The man could give an Emmy-worthy toast at Christmas.
Yes. Oh my god. Anyways. All right. So now we enter our trailers. Okay, How to Train Your Dragon. I honestly feel like I'm literally the one person on the internet who's actually okay with this. I'm not stoked, but I think it looks all right.
So here's the thing. It looks good, but it looks good, but it makes me question, it begs the question why, ultimately, where it's like, look, I'm sure I think it's going to be good, but I think even if this thing does good, it's only going to hurt the field of animation to some extent. Of just like, if we're just going to make them in live action to make them have them taken legitimately, it just feels like, well, why are we helping or hurting at this point?
Yeah, I feel ya. Gerard Butler coming back as Stoic is honestly kind of a weird take.
Well, what's wrong with that? That's kind of cool.
I don't know. I'm never a fan of the whole like recast the person from the original. I mean, I guess Dwayne Johnson makes sense as Maui, but like,
I mean, come on, if he makes
sense, a movie that should not exist.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm saying if you're gonna cast that guy in that role, I mean, come on, Gerard Butler. He feels like when he was cast in How to Train Your Dragon, he feels like if you were making a live action How to Train Your Dragon, you would have cast someone like Gerard Butler to play a Viking. Sure, that's what was cool about that casting. That's not bad. That's fine.
All right. I just don't want to. I just hope his voice holds up because I'm having fucking like with all due respect to James Earl Jones, but man, that was the Lion King voice acting there was rough on his part.
To be fair, Gerard Butler isn't like in his 80s.
No, I know. Let's see. I saw How to Train Your Dragon 2 and I didn't like it. I think I like How to Train Your Dragon, the first How to Train Your Dragon, better overall as a movie. I think the third one is the weakest, but I really respect How to Train Your Dragon 2, specifically for the death in that movie. All right. Colby, yeah, I did forget about the Golden Globes thing. I mean, frankly, I've not watched the Golden Globes in a long time. I legitimately don't know if I've ever actually watched a full Golden Globe ceremony. But yeah, he did bomb that pretty hard. All right, yeah, I don't know. I just like the designs of the dragons. I like that they're a little more realistic. I totally get you, though. It's like, what is the point of it except for, the whole Tom and Jerry?
I mean, here's the frustrating thing, because it feels like on one hand they're doing everything right, but it's still like, even if they're doing everything right, like we have Dean DeBois coming back and he's directing, which I think is a good move.
That's interesting.
He cares about the material. We've represented our animated characters very well.
But I'd almost like to see someone like I don't know, like someone who's more versed in live action tackling it, someone with more of a vision in live action. I don't know.
It just feels like on one hand, we're doing it right, but by the same token, it's like it's careful what you wish for. Like you want to see How to Train Your Dragon in live action. Well, here you go. It's like, well, yeah, it's the same movie though. What's the point?
It does seem like they're going pretty shot by shot with it, which is
it's the Psycho thing all over again.
Or the Lion King thing.
Well, there you go. So you're right. That's the better comparison. I'm saying before Lion King, you had Gus Van Sant, but this is like
at least Norman Bates masturbating was new.
Well, we didn't put in Bates Motel though. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know. It's frustrating in that I'm just very torn on it because I'm sure it'll be good, but it'll be like I don't want to take away from the original, which I feel ultimately is what might happen a little bit with it, or at the very least, they'll bring about all this discourse like the original's better. It's like, no, the new one's better. It's like, come on.
I don't think anyone's gonna say that.
Well, even so, it's all this like, like, why don't you like the new one? It's very slightly different. I don't like these weird human people.
Oh God, right. I mean, the one thing I will say is that I am interested in how this is potentially going to affect the Epic Universe land. Like, obviously, they're going to design most of that stuff based on the animated movies. It's already constructed and everything, but I am wondering if they're going to pull some inspiration. By the way, Dragon, they have full-blown, full-sized fucking dragon drones in that land.
Like, what do you mean by drones?
Like they are drones, like they fly around and shit, but they are literally dragons, like full-size dragons.
On one hand, that's really cool. On the other hand, it feels like Universal has too much money.
I mean, at least they're using their money well, unlike Disney.
Well, that's true. It also feels like, oh, we have a malfunctioning drone and park doors are crushed.
I don't know, man. I just, the more I see... Anyways.
It's raining fire from the skies. They're fire-breathing drones.
I don't think they're going to breathe fire. I don't know.
I don't know. We have a dragon that breathes fire in the Harry Potter land. I don't know.
Wait, no, we don't. What the fuck are you... Oh, yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was thinking of the dragon in the Forbidden Journey ride. That doesn't bring fire.
They're like the big albino dragon looking thing.
The one in the Forbidden Journey ride genuinely reminds me of you.
What?
Whenever I see it, I just picture in my head, well, actually, Tiki.
Really, that's what you distill me down to? You just distill me out to, well, actually, Tiki.
Yes! Right. Kokias, honestly, I think Frozen could work in live action, and I'm kind of surprised that they haven't tried that yet.
Well, we've already seen it in live action with Once Upon a Time.
True.
That's as much as I need. We did it. All we need is they add the snowman. That's all we need.
Colby says this is 100% to get people to visit the land since adult like cartoon, only real.
Yep. Which I still think is still the stupidest thing. That again, the animation doesn't have legitimacy after all these Oscars. Nothing.
Right. I mean, yeah, like my big thing with Epic Universe. If I were to change one thing about Epic Universe, take out that third Harry Potter land, put in a Wicked land, dude. I'm sure they're kicking themselves for not doing that. Anyways. All right. Next up, we have The Bad Guys 2. It should be called The Worst Guys.
That would be funny.
I don't know. I'm a little split on this one. I loved the first movie, as you know. I do think that I haven't watched any of the specials, but they have not had a good reputation, and I think they kind of diluted the brand a little bit. But correct me if I'm wrong, but the cast is back for this, right?
Well, they're back for this, but not for the specials.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah,
that's the thing.
So, like, on one hand, I kind of like the idea of like they're reformed, but then they get roped into this thing with the female bad guys, and I think that's kind of interesting. But at the same time, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of a repeat of like the bad guys are going to be the good guys, so we can keep on being the bad guys.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I'm cautiously optimistic about it, but I kind of feel like this franchise has lost a lot of steam.
Well, it's only its second movie, really, but
yeah, but like I said, those specials did not do the reputation any favors.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think with the trailer, it's a very fun status quo at the start. Like the whole idea of like they went from this. We see the flashback.
I like the 5 years later. I mean, you know me. I always like a good time jump.
So that's the thing. So I love seeing the flashback to how they got the car, then cut to like today, and he's puttering along. He's doing a job interview.
I'm never going to drive another car again for my life.
It's hysterical. So it feels like we're hitting all the right beats. Like, we have like the job interview at the bank. But
that's
this
fun,
movie,
that's fun, yeah.
But here's the thing: while all that's great and entices me to see it, then we get this plot, and it's like this movie is going to live or die by Kitty and her gang. Just the.
Do we have any voice actresses for that, by the
I
way?
mean, I didn't look into the voice cast on there probably is, but I didn't look into it yet.
Uh-huh.
But point being, it's like the idea that we could have. It just feels like we could have the curse of like the one last job in all these heist movies. It's like we'll come back for one last job, and that's just going to be
Right,
all of them.
right,
That's what
yeah.
concerns me. It's like that just opens up the Fast and the Furious floodgates right there. There's one last the Ocean's 11, I should say. A little bit of Fast and Furious, but still, let's just say it's mostly like the ocean. It's like Ocean's 11
Only
mixed.
Fast and Furious movie I've still ever seen is fucking Fast X, exclusively for Jason Momoa.
Yeah. There's a crossover for you. Imagine like an Ocean's movie cross with Fast and the Furious.
That honestly would be a really solid crossover. I'm not gonna lie.
Anyway, so that's kind of my theories.
I did rewatch Ocean's 11 for my Vegas trip, and it really held up.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Wait, which one? The original or
the original? The Clooney one.
Okay, well that's not the original, but okay.
No, I know, but it's the first one out of that.
Yeah. It's so weird. There's technically like 3 Oceans movies. The first one's technically.
There's 4 in the Clooney verse.
No. I mean, like in terms of like the first one, like when they remake have like Ocean.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying. Was the old ladies one like Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 8?
Ocean's 8.
Okay, well never mind then. The point being, there's only 2.
Because it was Tess Ocean, so it was still technically an ocean.
That's dumb. Anyway. Point being, Bad Guys 2, I mean, it looks interesting, but again, it's going to live or die by the plot.
Yeah. All right, these next 2 are kind of more your picks, so I'll kind of let you take the lead. We have The Studio, which is an Apple TV Plus series, which means I won't be able to fucking watch it. But it does look pretty interesting. I like the premise. I like basically like Seth Rogen plays, if I'm getting the gist of this right, he's basically played a guy who's like a very genuine, earnest fan of film, and he's taken on the position of the head of a studio, who is very much the epitome of we've got to have money. I like that. I think that's a really creative idea. So I like what I'm seeing from this.
It feels like it might be kind of a more earnest version of what they're doing on Max right now with the franchise.
I saw that. I can't bring myself to watch it. It looks too cringe.
Anyway, so the point of this seems to be the more kind of earnest, like Seth Rogen seems to be like a likable guy who's like trying to navigate being like a studio head or like the top guy who reports to the studio, and it looks fun, it looks meta, and here's the thing, it's kind of an Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen production. These guys usually they do pretty well with the stuff they produce. So I mean,
yeah.
I can recall a rare miss with them, but that's the thing.
Uh-huh.
At least their live action work more accurately, but
All right. Let's see. Next up, we have The Amateur, starring Rami Malek. This is essentially Rami Malek, John Wick. Dragon, I'm not going to lie. I'm sick of these John Wick rip-offs. I really am. I'm over it. The one thing I'll give you with this is that I do think the chemistry between him and his wife at the beginning is genuinely kind of adorable.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I kind of think this is just kind of whatever. It's just Rami Malek playing a dweeby guy who you wouldn't expect to be a John Wick, but he's a John Wick. I don't know.
I think it's kind of like, honestly, less John Wick, more Nobody. It just feels like kind of like...
Yeah, but Nobody was kind of like John Wick, but a dweeby guy. So it's like, this is pretty much the same thing.
I mean, I like the idea that it's kind of like Mr. Robot crossed with kind of a John Wick in a sense, in a very ironic
You're literally only saying Mr. Robot because it's Rami Malek.
Well, no, it means a hacker, Tiki. That's why.
Okay, yeah,
and I'm saying yes, and look, I'm not this. I'm saying yes, but also he literally is in the occupation of Mr. Robot.
Yeah, but I think that's just typecasting. Then I don't know.
I'm not.
I am not excited for this thing, man. I'm sorry. This thing did not pique my interest.
Well, all I'm saying is I think Ryan Malek has enough goodwill that we could give him a shot. Like he's trying a new genre. Let's see what he does. Plus, we have really good people in this movie too, like to help them out because we got Lawrence Fishburne, we have John Bernthal, and we have Michael Stuhlbarg.
Sure. I figured that was pretty much the reason you wanted to talk about it, is more the supporting cast.
I mean, it's that. It's look, is it reinventing the wheel premise wise? Heck no. But I like the idea. It's a guy who wants to go on a revenge mission, but we firmly establish in the trailer he does not have the means in which to do it. At least we think.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I thought it looks like okay. Look at Malik go. Look at him.
Look at him go.
Look at him try a new genre. That talented little actor. Okay.
Colby says by that logic, it's Freddie Mercury, but John Wick. That would be a movie I'd actually be interested in. Anyways, okay. Okay, yeah. So I think this might be one of the quickest news things we've gone through. So let's just get right into the.
Tiki, we still have two left.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. My bad.
Yeah, real quick, Dream Productions, the Inside Out series. What'd you think? Trailer was.
Honestly, I think this thing is going to live and die based on if it's going to be like 20-minute episodes or 5-minute episodes. If it's going to be 5-minute episodes, it's basically fucking pointless. They might as well just make it a short film and call it a day.
Well, it is only going to be 4 episodes, which makes me think they're not going to make them 5 minutes.
I mean, I hope so, but man, it's like stuff like Zootopia Plus and Baymax and that kind of shit, I don't know.
I mean, I really like that they're committing to. I like the whole documentary style they have applied to it. That's what really.
I love the fact that Anger's face is censored because he didn't sign off on his likeness. That's
hilarious.
Excellent.
I love he's procrastinating on. Yeah, I'll get to it.
They actually the Belushi subplot in Saturday Night is actually pretty much that.
Oh,
yeah,
nice. Well, yeah. I mean, I think again, assuming it is like that, just 4 episodes are actually episode length. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Remember, Dream Productions is influenced by SNL, so that's going to be kind of interesting for you, Tiki.
True. All right, and then finally, Dragon. What's the last one we have on our docket?
Dexter: Original Sin.
Oh, God. Jesus Christ!
So I mainly want to talk about this because I wanted just to kind of vent about it briefly.
It looks so fucking bad.
Now, Tiki, do you remember in the trailer the framing device premise?
Basically the fact that Dragon. Essentially, what we're getting with this is we're getting what people wanted from a potential Breaking Bad sequel, where it's like, oh no, Walter White isn't actually dead.
Now, I mean, look, here's the thing. If it really seems like if they were smart, again, it's a dumb idea, so I use smart in quotes, mind you. But I'm saying if we're really gonna drag our heels and we're gonna leave Dexter, kicking and screaming, it feels like if we're gonna take one more bite at the apple, it feels like okay. Well, he's essentially his life is flashing before his eyes. Well, if you're gonna need a framing device, I mean, that chronologically fits in. I guess that plays.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying, though. It feels like if they're gonna get multiple seasons out of this, it feels like the dumbest. He's dying for a long time.
I very much doubt they're going to try and do multiple seasons of this shit.
Here's the thing. The alternative is like, okay, he's gonna walk that off, and he's gonna be fine. That'll be like the big way they hook everyone. Okay, Michael C. Hall, Dexter actually he somehow survived his mortal wound.
They can't. They just straight up can't do that. I do not believe they would do that.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm using smart in parentheses here, where it's like, look, if this is like a last, okay, so we're gonna go back to the beginning as a way of closing the book, maybe, but even so, it just feels like we already said everything we need to with young Dexter and the flashbacks in season 1 of Dexter. We don't really need to do that again. It's just there's no story there. I mean, it would be like an epilogue piece, okay, but here's the thing: do a special. Don't do like a whole season. And I can get behind there's only one thing in this show I do like. Christian Slater as Harry. I think that's
solid casting. That's solid casting.
Everything else, I don't really buy it. One, it just feels already wrong that Dexter shouldn't be at in Miami Metro when he's practically a teenager.
Oh, I know. It's so bad.
I think the whole point is that he kind of found a job like Harry's versus hey, look at the job Harry got him.
No.
So yeah, it looks pretty insulting. When I already was not on board for this from the beginning, but then seeing
Are they
this is
still
like,
doing the Trinity show? I thought that was a thing.
I don't think so. I think the Trinity show was like speculation when we didn't know
Wasn't
the
that
end.
a thing at a certain point?
Well, no, Tiki. What I'm saying is, I think the Trinity thing was speculated when we didn't know how Dexter New Blood was going to end.
Okay.
That's what I think. That's what I think was happening there.
You know what's really ridiculous about this is that, from what I can tell, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I don't even think they have like a marquee villain like they did with Clancy Brown in New Blood.
Well, I'm sure they're going to assign maybe like one, like, okay, Dexter, he ingratiates himself to the the Miami PD, but he's going to catch the guy at the end. He's going to somehow lead to the capture of the mysterious death of the big killer of the season. That's probably
I guess, but you know what I mean, right?
I know what you mean. That's what I'm saying.
I feel like we need. I feel like the one thing. I mean, granted, the Harry stuff, it is solid casting. I will give you that, but I truly think every Dexter season needs that hook, needs that kind of like wow factor of the villain. I mean, that's kind of what makes or breaks the show every time.
I mean, they might have cast somebody for that role, but I'm kind of blanking on who it is right now. If they did, but if so, I'm sure.
Also, can we talk about how fucking cringy it is? The fact that they literally just like roll out like the gang's all here. Look, it's young LaGuerta and young Angel Batista.
Yeah.
And young, what's his name? The freaking pervert guy.
Masuka,
yes.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, no, seriously, was that not cringe?
Yeah, that was absolutely, yeah.
Just like, let's just roll them all out. The gang's all here.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's move on to November 2024 movies.
Oh, you know who I think their big killer might be?
Who?
I think they have Patrick Dempsey is in the cast.
Okay.
My guess is that
he
might
thinking
be
the same thing when I saw him pop up.
That is my. Also, they have Joey Pantoliano. Those are the two biggest names that they have. So it feels like either Dempsey or Pantoliano might be the bad guy, but I don't know.
I would be down with Dempsey, honestly. I feel like Dempsey is kind of like, I don't think he'd do like obviously as good of a job as Lithgow, but I think he's kind of in that mold of like he could surprise us. I think he's got that potential. So
he is a good actor, but
yeah. All right. Anyways, moving on. November 2024 movies. Dragon, tell us about the cinematic event of the decade, Red One.
All right, so we might be not we as in everyone here, but we collectively might be talking about Red One soon. So this was the long-delayed Christmas movie due to the strike. It was supposed to come out last year, but it got pushed back. Because I was very hyped for just in premise for a number of reasons, mainly because like J.K. Simmons playing Santa Claus in live action, which already, given how much we love Klaus, I was like, okay, I definitely want to see that.
I feel like you put way too much stock in that, though. Honestly.
Well, I mean, look, it wasn't
J.K. Simmons has been in some garbage. I love the man, but he's been in some garbage.
I'm saying Tiki was a combination of things. That was a big get. That was like kind of an eye catcher, but also like, hey, Chris Evans in a Christmas movie, and we have J.K. Simmons in there, and I don't know. The whole plus honestly, I'm a sucker for like an action Santa Claus kind of thing here. It's I don't know. We had like a J.K. Simmons Santa Claus. There was kind of like The Rock is like an elf, which is kind of hilarious in premise, just like the Rock playing a. But the movie kind of delivers.
Basically has Ant-Man powers, right?
Yes, which I wasn't.
Without the actual shrinking, I mean, like how he handles like objects.
Pretty much, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So here's the thing. So Jake Kasdan directed this. Now, Jake Kasdan, he did the Jumanji movies, which pretty good, pretty entertaining. And I mean, look, so we have Chris Evans basically plays a skeptic, and we have the very earnest who takes his job very seriously, elf bodyguard to Santa, The Rock, and they team up to basically find Santa Claus. It's pretty much like a Saves Christmas movie.
Uh-huh.
And because of that, the movie's a lot of fun. And again, I will say this: J.K. Simmons, he is the best part of the whole movie. However, proviso, the whole premise of the movie is he gets kidnapped. So not a lot of J.K. Simmons, unfortunately.
Yeah, I kind of had a
That
feeling with that.
But
Yeah.
Tiki, I promise you though, had you watched the movie and if you just only watch the opening of the movie when he is in the movie, you will say, "Oh my god, that was a fantastic take on Santa Claus." You
I
would
mean, I
love
don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
J.K. Simmons. And yeah, I think he's kind of following the Ed Asner role. This guy may have been put on this earth to be Santa Claus
Right,
sometimes, you
right.
know. Anyway, here's the thing: villain's kind of lame. Um, However, a
I
lot of
heard the
effort.
best scene was the Krampus scene.
Yeah, Krampus. No, here's the thing: he wasn't the villain, but he was great though.
Uh-huh.
That's the thing. So Krampus did a great job of Krampus. A lot of effort was put in this, and the fact that Krampus is practical. That's what I'm talking about. Like, there's effort that is put into this and is appreciated, but I think it was just doomed on theatrical release. Because one, competition essentially is Wicked. I think there's like a week difference between them, but it's like you have that. And yeah, it was kind of doomed on how it was released, and I think the year's delay also kind of hurt it. But it was, I mean, I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. I think it could have been better, sure, in terms of like our villain selection. But I mean, it pretty much lived up to what I thought it was. But again, it does feel very much like you should have streamed on Amazon.
Right,
But it
right.
would have been like a high quality like project on Amazon had it been. Like it would have been thinking everyone would have watched it that way.
I mean, I kind of feel like Spirited kind of like hit that balance better where it was technically in theaters, but it didn't have this big theatrical rollout. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Spirited, I'm sure, is a better movie.
Well, no, absolutely.
Oh,
It is. Yeah.
all right.
All right.
Okay, next up we have Wicked. You did get around to this, right?
No.
All right. Honestly, Dragon, this is not a perfect movie. I think the biggest flaw this movie has is honestly the lighting and the color grading. It's just straight up bad in certain scenes, which is a huge shame considering the sets in this movie are fucking immaculate. I mean, I very much mean what I said about the Universal Studios land, because the sets in this movie, you would not believe it from looking at the trailers, but they are so built out. They are so physical. But the way that they light most of them is just crap. It's like there's this kind of like harsh like backlight to all of it. It's like a glare almost. It's just genuinely does not look great. That being said, Ariana Grande, fucking revelation. Genuine fucking star making. I mean, she's obviously already a star, but movie star making revelation. Like, her performance is incredible. Honestly, she really blew me away. Cindy Arifo's really good. I will give Arivo her flowers for sure. I think Arivo's performance lies a little bit more in just being a really big powerhouse vocalist, whereas I think Grande gets more of a chance to. Obviously, the character's more comedically driven, so she gets a lot to do in that regard. But also, there's a lot of like nonverbal facial reaction acting that Grande's doing in this movie that I really thought was powerful. And frankly, you don't get that from the stage play, because obviously the nature of the stage play, it needs to be big and bombastic. You don't really get that's why I think the pro shot of Hamilton is the way to watch Hamilton. Even though I have seen Hamilton live, I still prefer the pro shot just because of that. But yeah, I mean, the songs in this thing are classic, iconic, popular. Defying Gravity, Being the Wizard, Loathing. I mean, it's just no one mourns the wicked. Across the board, there's literally not a bad song in this thing. And honestly, a lot of the choreography is, again, just stunning. I'm going to go out on a limb here, okay? Dancing Through Life, in particular, is genuinely one of the most jaw-dropping musical numbers I have ever seen in a movie. Like, I was getting vibes of Step in Time with that number. It's absolutely incredible what they did with that. There's some moments of just the choreography is just insane, the sets, and then the emotion and how that whole scene builds. It's just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. the part two of it all, I honestly think flows really well. I think what splitting it up into two parts allowed them to do is to really linger on moments and really linger on emotions and really take emotional beats. And frankly, I think it flows better than the play does, because the play, a lot of it feels very rushed, and this does not feel rushed. This feels very lived in. So honestly, Dragon, this is going to be probably in my top 5 of the year. I truly think it's a shame that visually it's not a little bit better, but like at least the production design is incredible. The choreography is incredible. The costumes, everything. The CGI is meh. It's not the worst CGI I've ever seen. It's far from the best CGI I've seen either. But the performances are just insane. It just really comes down to the flat lighting, which is just a shame. I don't know. I feel like someone should seriously just go in and edit it, put in some artificial lighting that looks better, because I truly think it would be just a bona fide masterpiece. But yeah, no, I truly think that Dragon, I really think you owe it. I understand your situation with not being able to see it in theaters. You owe it to yourself to see this when it comes to streaming, man. Because if you're a fan of Frozen at all, I mean, this is like Frozen on fucking steroids, man. Like, I think you'll get really swept up in this thing.
All right.
Us Victorious kids already knew Ariana was hilarious. Yeah, Ariana's time on Nickelodeon was sort of after my stint with Nickelodeon, unfortunately. So I didn't really have that context. All right, but yeah, Wicked, absolutely fantastic for the most part. It sucks that I have to have that asterisk of, but the lighting sucks. I genuinely hate that. All right. Music by John Williams, not in the Wicked movie, but it's a documentary that you saw that I will probably see next month. Tell us about it.
Yes, this is on Disney Plus. It was very nicely done. It's gives you a nice insight and a retrospective on John Williams. I thought they were going to play more scared with the stuff that, aside from the Disney related stuff that John Williams did, but no, they covered the gambit. They didn't lean as heavy into some of the other stuff outside of like the Lucasfilm, Spielberg related stuff, but they did cover. Like we see some clips of Superman. We got it in there. Here's the thing. Speaking of which, something really adorable thing to entice you. There's this adorable way they did like the interviews where they had like. You see Spielberg and John Williams kind of interacting, like in the modern day, like today, when they're they're sitting down for this, and it's so ridiculously cute. I'm just saying, it's like, again, like they're like best buddies, practically a married couple. It's adorable. It's like just like the Williams like doing his interview, and then Spielberg just kind of walks over and he just like crashes.
You know what? You're absolutely right. That has sold me on it.
Seriously, you gotta see how precious it is. Like these two are like the oldest friends ever, and it's like it's really great. And you learn some things about John Williams' past, which I never really knew. We always know what the man's work. We know how John Williams sounds, essentially. And we know, like, oh yeah, he's the guy in the turtleneck. That's essentially all we know, and we kind of cover the
other guy in the turtleneck besides Steve Jobs,
and they cover that. Talk about the documentary.
They really talk about the Steve Jobs thing.
Yes, I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah, they talk about, he's like he and Steve Jobs. They have that. Anyway, I mean, the only pet peeve that I have, it's not even a pet peeve. It's just like, obviously John Williams has done like bazillion scores, so he can only show so much. I really wish we talked about the Terminal, not for the reason you think, not just because I love the Terminal, but because
I know why. Because that movie is rooted in jazz, and obviously he was initially a jazz musician. I mean, that makes sense.
Well, that's the thing, because he really
fan of that movie, but it makes sense for his life story.
Because he really liked doing the score on the Terminal. It just feels like, because of the reason you just said, and it just feels like I don't think they should have omitted that. But they do. They do talk about the whole jazzy Johnny Williams thing. All in it, nice. Though they address it like straight on the whole thing. This man really loved jazz, and the way he composes essentially has like an ear for jazz.
I bet him and Damien Chazelle will get along famously.
Oh my God, yes.
Seriously.
That's what I'm saying. Do you really owe it to yourself to give this a watch? I mean, of all the quality documentaries you can find on Disney Plus, this is one of them. This was top tier for them.
Definitely.
It's nice and simple and digestible. It's I'm not going to say it's like a comfort watch in that it doesn't have like it's deep moments, but it's very digestible and all. It's like it's a well prepared. It's like a well prepared meal for the soul.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up we have A Real Pain. This was directed by Jesse Eisenberg, stars Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin. Dragon, Kieran Culkin, he's probably the front runner to win Best Supporting Actor right now from this at the Oscars. If I were to bet money on it, and I honestly think he deserves it. He gives a hell of a performance. I don't necessarily love the movie, but I definitely love his performance. So essentially with the movie, it's basically like him and Eisenberg are in a tour group going through essentially taking a tour of Holocaust locations because their grandmother just died and she was, I believe, a Holocaust survivor. Colby, please correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm pretty sure that she was from the country that they're in. I'm pretty sure she survived the Holocaust. The big thing about Culkin's character that I really resonated with, and I know for a fact you will too, for obvious reasons, is that he literally, like, he was very close with the grandmother. Like, he lived with the grandmother.
Mm.
And Dragon, I literally, like, I am blessed and cursed to have 3 out of my 4 grandparents still with me. Obviously, I'm blessed because I've gotten so much time with them. But I'm cursed because literally every day, man, every day is like, what's going to happen when they're gone? They are going to go sooner rather than later. Like it's terrible anxiety for me, honestly. So I think this being kind of like a portrait of Kieran Culkin's character's mental health spiral after that support structure in his life goes, I mean, it's super powerful. I think by far my favorite part of this movie is just the tension with Culkin just being very unhinged. Like, he is not reacting well at all to some of the Holocaust stuff. I think the best scene in the movie is they're on a train going to a fucking concentration camp on this tour, but they're in first class and they're being treated all nice and stuff. And it genuinely sends Culkin into like an existential fucking meltdown for obvious reasons. And that scene is spectacular. Like, that scene, like, just in a bottle could be its own short film. I do think the film kind of peters out towards the end, honestly. They do leave the tour group after, like, Act 2, and I think the third act is... The third act is nice, but it's just kind of, like, resolving some of the character stuff. I like I said, I think there's this tour guide that I really love. He kind of has some Taika Waititi energy to him, where he's trying so fucking hard to like be polite in front of this guy who's obviously going through a really bad mental health crisis, but at the same time, this dude with a mental health crisis is very clearly like taking the rails off of his tour. And so there's this kind of constant like push and pull in the power dynamics. And that I honestly wish would have been like the main thrust of the whole movie, because I found that dynamic to be fascinating. So there's elements of this that I truly, really love. I think the Eisenberg character is just okay. I think his performance is just okay. And frankly, the directing is fine, but it's not anything that I'm going to look back on and be like, wow, I can't wait to see what Eisenberg does next on a visual level. But yeah, I still think this is absolutely worth checking out just for the Kieran Culkin performance. I think it's a really solid 7 out of 10. It's like a high 7 out of 10 for me. All right. Okay. I love this title, Doc of Chucky.
Yes. So, Okay, so I love comprehensive franchise horror documentaries. It's kind of like my in a weird way it's kind of like my exposure therapy of sorts. It's how with the Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the
I
13th
mean, I
I've
think it's
seen.
worked because since you've started watching them, you have graduated to actually watching stuff like The Exorcist. So,
Yeah. So that's the thing. So I saw these really great documentaries about like the making of basically covering all the movies in the franchise, and you get a sense like you've kind of been through. At the very least, it gets a little less scary because you know all the stuff that goes into the making of the movies, like Never Sleep Again and the Camp Crystal Lake Memories documentary. So I love those, and I watch them like all the time, especially around Halloween.
uh-huh.
So of course, of all the horror icons, I'm still terrified of Chucky, but also kind of fascinated. Uh, but mainly because of my love of probably due to the puppetry, my intrigue in the puppetry and the whole toy factor at play. So there's always kind of an intrigue in Chucky, but also just utterly kind of like I'd be terrified of that thing in real life. Anyway,
I have
so
never been remotely scared of Chucky. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you on that.
yeah, I know. Yeah, you have
Even
nothing,
when I was a little kid, I wasn't scared of Chucky.
and yet giant carnivorous plants. That's
Yes, absolutely, giant carnage dragon. They're alive, but they shouldn't be alive, and they fucking eat you. It's
yeah, but they're not gonna like run around and stab you though.
It's the biology of it that freaks me out, though.
Okay, anyway, point being, kids, fear is subjective.
Yes, yes.
Point being,
I mean, I have some weird childhood fears. I mean, look a peach, anyone?
yeah. Anyway,
Do you remember Look a Peach?
I remember Look a Peach. I remember. The fact of the matter is, the Chucky series. There's been some intrigue in that, and like the TV series and everything. So, anyway, I heard about this documentary, which basically just dropped this month, top of this month, and I absolutely, I wanted to watch this. The problem was it wasn't for rental or for purchase, because if this thing was like saying it's on DVD, I might have automatically
Oh,
possibly
that's
purchased
annoying.
it. But here's the thing: so it
Physical
wasn't.
media, the nerve. Ew. Obviously, I'm kidding.
So basically, it was only offered on Shutter as like a free trial. So I had to do like the free trial on Shutter to watch this because there was no other. I couldn't just like rent it like through Amazon like on its own. It's like hey, you go to Amazon like hey, only available free trial through Shutter. So I had to do that. I ended up doing it and just kind of also getting in some extra horror documentaries, which you're probably going to see later. So this is a great doc, Tiki. This is exactly what I want from this. It's unique in that we have like some really you have some great creatives in Don Mancini, who again through kind of Chris Arda Notarelli, he's had some stories about Don Mancini.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, this is the interesting thing is that you, unlike the other two hard like franchise documentaries, you had the same creative on all the movies. Like Wes Craven only did like the first and essentially the proper last Nightmare on Elm Street film. You have Sean Cunningham producing all the Friday the 13th films, but again, it's different creatives each movie.
Uh-huh.
So that's what's interesting. Is Don Mancini? He had the concept and he ran with it throughout the whole franchise, and it's very much his baby. And he has like the continuing continuity, despite how ridiculous it gets. So, with the exception of the remake, which they don't cover here. So it's interesting behind the scenes.
Oh,
Like
the
for example,
remake was trash. I remember watching that purely for Mark Hamill, and it was trash.
yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
So the behind the scenes on this is really interesting. Like the voice of the doll for Chucky is the actual one of the actual basis for the Chucky doll, like the Corky doll, like the knockoff Cabbage Patch. Like the the little doll with like the voice box in it. So it was Corky does the actual voice of like hey, I'm Chucky, want to play? That's him. And apparently Don Mancini and Tom Holland, the guy who did the original Child's Play, the lauded one, they really didn't get along because Tom Holland wanted to claim all the credit for, for doing all the stuff that was memorable about the movie.
Uh-huh.
Which again, there's like an interesting argument to be made based on the movie because he'd had a lot to do with it and the direction and everything, but still, it's Don Mancini's baby. Anyway, so and the big thing I was most interested in, Tiki, you're not going to believe this, okay? There is a connecting point between all three franchises, between Nightmare on Elm Street, between Friday the 13th, and between Chucky, and that is Ronnie Yen doing Bride of Chucky, and that's what we finally kind of he's appeared in all these other documentaries because he directed Freddy versus Jason, and they always say he got the job for that because he did Bride of Chucky. So I finally got
Really, Bride of Chucky, from what I know, is one of the more memorable ones.
Exactly. So we finally get to talk about that here. You know. Anyway, so it's a very fun watch, and I would definitely buy it on DVD should it be available, just to add to my kind of collection of the horror franchise kind of stuff. So
You know what
I
my problem is with DVD is that I literally don't have a device to play DVD.
well, I know that's your hang-up, but you in theory you could play it on your computer if you did get an upscale that would actually have a disc drive for you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't have a disc drive now, but yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
Okay, moving on, we have Heretic. Yeah, this is the big A24. I would say this is probably the biggest A24 horror movie of the year. And honestly, Dragon, I'm not going to lie. You know, I'm an A24 fanboy. They've had a rough 2024, man. They've had a rough 2024. I think Neon has actually kind of eclipsed them in 2024. But this is solid for sure. I don't love it. Is Colby? I don't agree. I think Wicked is pretty superior to this, but that, you know, film is subjective. I will say that Hugh Grant is absolutely the reason to watch it. He is magnetic. I actually think you'd kind of get a kick out of this, and believe me, Dragon, this is hardly a horror movie. It's more of a thriller with like. It's mostly dialogue driven, honestly. It's like a thriller mixed with religious debate. Like there's very little actual horror in it. But Hugh Grant is really good. There's these two Mormon girls, including Sophia Lillis, who was in Yellow Jackets, as well as that, you know, was that one random gang member from Book of Boba Fett. But yeah, she's in it. It's two Mormon girls. They stop by Jar Jar Binks gets name dropped, indeed. They stop by Hugh Grant's house, and Hugh Grant essentially tricks them into coming in the house, locks them in the house, and engages them in the world's most intense religious debate that you've ever seen. It's a lot of fun. It loses a lot of steam in the third act. Like, Colby, I'm sorry. The third act, I think, is trash for the most part. As soon as we get into the basement and we see what's in the basement and the supernatural type shit starts going down, it's trash. I think the movie just goes fully off the rails at that point. I like the actual ending. I do like the beat of the ending. I will say that much. But it kind of reminds me of Knock at the Cabin in that way. It's actually very similar to Knock at the Cabin because it's a mostly dialogue-driven movie. It's got a lot of like religious kind of philosophical discussion. It's got a standout performance. In Knock at the Cabin, it was Batista. Yeah, I did love the first half too. And honestly, at the first half, I was kind of thinking like this might be like a top 10 of the year for me. But I'm a man where it's like how a movie ends is going to be, it's going to have a big factor on how I feel about it overall. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not trash, but it's trashy. I really don't like basically as soon as they get into the basement, you can just turn it off and be like, okay, that was a good short film. That's what I think, at least. I don't know. But Dragon, I'm telling you though, Hugh Grant, this is genuinely, the last shot was really good. The last shot was really good. I'll give you that. I will give you that. This is Hugh Grant's best performance, and it's not even fucking close. Like, this is Hugh Grant's magnum opus of a performance. So, if you do get a chance to see it, just see it for that alone. Hugh Grant is just tearing up the scenery fucking Slim Pickens style. And we'll get into Slim Pickens. Sorry about that. accidentally pushed the StreamYard logo, and it brought me back to the homepage. Anyways, yes, Slim Pickens will make an appearance later on in this podcast. All right, Dragon, tell me about Return of the King, not the Lord of the Rings one.
Yeah, so this is the fall and rise of Elvis Presley.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah, so it's basically a more targeted and focused kind of version of the Searcher documentary. They had this big, massive, like 2-part documentary on Elvis they put out on HBO a few years back. And that was good, but really, let's face it, if I'm watching that, I'm watching part 2, which is basically do all the iconic Elvis stuff in it. But here's the thing. This recaps. This is kind of like a nice, economized, digestible version of that. Where it's basically this. Here's the thing. There's a nice narrative kind of point to it, where it's not a cradle to grave story, Tiki, in documentary form. It's not that. This is basically, again, this is Elvis a very specific point in his career. This is all about the '68 comeback special and the importance of the '68 comeback special. This is about Elvis's career. Where he was like, this is like kind of him during the downbeat, where it was like he hated doing the movies, and we don't we don't cover the death of Elvis, and it's just, again, it ends on a high note. This is about like kind of Elvis having lost touch with who he was and getting back in touch with his roots.
Right.
And I don't know. I thought it was really nicely put together. I think it's very watchable. Like, basically, if you wanted to save yourself the time of watching all the Searcher, or if you wanted kind of like, if anyone's iffy on like the Baz Luhrmann Elvis movie, this is the
like me.
Yes, like you,
like me.
But that's the thing, Tiki. I think you get a bigger kick out of this one.
It would not surprise me at all. That fucking Baz Luhrmann movie was exhausting.
That's what I'm saying. This really gets into how like Elvis was really frustrated by those movies, and there's like a whole like sequence where we kind of talk about like God, it's just like there was just rinse and repeat, and he was like throwing the scripts across the room. He just he just hated those movies. So it also is the fact that he was it was Elvis hated being the brand that Tom Parker drove him to be, and this isn't all about Tom Parker's already. It's very different than the Baz Luhrmann Elvis. So I don't know. I think you get a kick out of this, and any Elvis fans out there, I think they would probably be kind of good hitting this one.
Nice. All right, cool. Okay, finally, the last new release of the month, and this is, we kind of have to put an asterisk here. This probably would have been on the poster, instead of A Real Pain, except for the fact that it did technically come out in October, but it was a very limited release in October, so we're just going to call it a November movie. Anora. This is directed by Sean Baker, the same guy who did the Florida Project. And Dragon, honestly, like, it's very hard for me between this and Wicked. I think I probably like this even more. I will say, though, it did take me 2 viewings. This is one of those movies where it's like I really liked it the first time I saw it, but the second time I saw it, it just clicked. It really solidified itself. I was like, oh, no, this is excellent. Like, this director knows exactly what he's doing here. This is masterful storytelling. So essentially, the first half of this movie is basically like a more raunchy and R-rated Pretty Woman, right? Where like the whole idea is that this spoiled brat of a Russian kid. So he's like, it was Richard Gere in Pretty Woman, right? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
It's Richard Gere, yeah.
So instead of charming Richard Gere, it's just like a spoiled brat, like 12-year-old in a 21-year-old's body Russian kid who's the child of like a bigwig like Russian mob family who's like totally loaded. Anora, the title character, who goes by Annie. The fact that she goes by Annie and not Anora is kind of a big plot point. She's a sex worker, and she essentially gets hired by this guy to at first be his girlfriend for a week, but he has such a good time with it that they actually end up eloping to Vegas to get married, and that's kind of the first half. And then the second half is the Russian family finding out about it, being like, "Oh fuck no, we are shutting this shit down so fast." And the parents send these 3 bumbling idiots to to go and deal with the situation. And I honestly don't want to spoil anything after that, because the movie is a ride after that. Like, I don't want to spoil anything that happens. But I will say, these 3 fucking idiots, Dragon, they are like the 3 Stooges, man. It is a comedy of errors. I mean, these 3 are genuinely some of the absolute funniest performances I have seen all fucking year. All 3 of them are just absolutely delightful as characters. I do think the movie, it's 2 hours, 20 minutes long. I think it could have been like maybe a hair over 2 hours. Like, there are a couple spots where it sort of drags a little. It gets a little repetitive. That's my only nitpick with it. But I mean, like, visually, obviously, you're not going to get like the incredible, like, like huge set design and choreography of something like Wicked. But my God, as far as the cinematography goes, this thing is like in another league from Wicked. So that definitely makes up for it. I mean, this thing still, it's a beautiful looking movie. I love how Sean Baker has his visual motifs, like theme parks. Like Coney Island is a big fixture of this, much like Disney World was in the Florida project. Obviously, Coney Island isn't like the Holy Land like Disney World is in the Florida project, but it's still a big set piece. I don't know, man. I think this movie's really special, and I am genuinely rooting for it to win Best Picture, and I think it's got a solid chance. And I think Mikey Madsen, who plays Honora, is going to be, like, if she doesn't win Best Actress, I'm genuinely going to be surprised, because she's just an absolute tour de force. I don't necessarily know if you'll like this, just because as far as the sex stuff goes, it is pretty explicit. But I mean, I'm like full-blown asexual, and that it didn't really bother me. I mean, it's just kind of part of who the character is, and they're not trying to glamorize it. That's when sex scenes bother me, is when they show sex scenes just to be like, "Oh yeah, I bet you wish you were doing this." Yeah, it's like, no, the sex scenes in it. Wow, I'm sorry about that. The sex scenes.
Well, that's going to haunt my nightmares now. So
I was literally trying to emulate Matt Stone in that.
I would hope so.
Ah, yeah. All right. But no, the sex scenes in Enora are quick. They're dirty. They're unglamorous. They're very much just meant to be like, yeah, this is the reality of this woman's life. I don't know. I kind of adore this movie, and like I said, I just the fact that it is a movie that plays so much better on a rewatch honestly makes me like it even more, because I love movies like with layers like that. So yeah, big recommend for sure. All right, next up we got TV.
Let's see what's on.
Okay, Penguin. So you guys talked about the season finale, which, as far as I remember, that was pretty much the only thing that we haven't talked about. Like, because I don't know, with TV, we always get into these weird situations where the season ends like 1 week into the month. I think we should have some sort of system for that, but we don't. This is not just the best superhero show I think I've probably ever seen. And I say that like pretty definitively. It's not a superhero show. It's not, but it's, superhero adjacent. It's a comic book show. Let's say that much. I think this is straight up the best TV show since Better Call Saul. Just straight up. I think this is better than Succession. I mean, just the level of storytelling at play here. That final episode, Dragon, the last 2 episodes in particular really cemented this for me. I think the first couple episodes do get off to a little bit of a slow start. I'm not going to lie. I like the first 2 episodes. I don't love them. But the last 2 episodes are just, I mean, to say it sticks to landing is just a huge understatement. I mean, I genuinely fucking adore everything that they do here. It's funny because I remember the last time I was on talking about Penguin, I was like, yeah, I like Vic as a character, but I don't really know if he's gonna play that meaningful of a role in the overall narrative. I was fucking stupid.
Yeah, God,
I
were
was
you?
fucking stupid.
Yeah.
That moment, man, that scene. I mean, I'm not going to say exactly what it is, just in case anyone hasn't seen it. You can pretty much put the pieces together. I mean, just that was fucking Colin Farrell's crawl space moment for me. That was the moment where it's like my perception of this character and this performance just immediately shifted, and I got this sick feeling in the pit of my stomach over it, and I love how visceral that reaction is. I mean, not only that, but like I genuinely love how vicious of a villain Sophia was throughout the course of the show, and I also love that she's genuinely sympathetic without going the whole like girl power route with it, the girl boss route with it. My big complaint with this show, honestly, is Dr. What's his name? I just think the guy I don't like that actor. He kind of just gives me a bad vibe.
What do you mean you don't like that actor?
I don't like the actor. I don't like the actor playing the doctor. I don't like his vibe.
All right.
I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, you liked him in other stuff.
Remind me what else he's been in.
Okay, I keep blanking on the name of that Kevin Hart show. I think it's remember it was like the Kevin Hart show with him and Wesley Snipes in it. It was kind of like
right, yeah.
It was in that, and he was in Luke Cage.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. He was Shane's. God, that's weird. That's weird to think about. I don't know, man. That character in general just seemed pretty superfluous. I wish they would have actually done the Fight Club thing with him that I was kind of pitching, but they kind of backed out of that. I know. Other than him, though, I think the whole rest of the series is more or less flawless. I think every character just has their role. They play it beautifully. I think every episode fits into the overall structure. Great. We get the bat signal right at the very end, which is a perfect little chef's kiss of a moment. I don't know. I no real notes. This is just. Do you agree that it's the best comic book show ever?
Well, not ever, Tiki. We have Daredevil.
Oh, fuck.
It's up there, though. It's really up there. Again, I can't, because Daredevil exists.
I can't say that this is better than the entirety of Daredevil.
Yeah.
I will say this might be better than any individual season of Daredevil.
Come on, season 1.
I'm more of a season 3 guy, personally.
Well, I'm saying between
I like season 1 a lot.
I'm saying between season 1 and or season 3. You know, I mean, come on.
And season 2 obviously has its high points as well. And without season 2, we wouldn't get the splishy splash in the blood, Matthew.
Hey, look, I want to be clear, okay? I'm just saying seasons 1 and 3 of Daredevil are utter perfection. 2 is a great season, but again, it's held back by like a limited number of episodes.
Yeah, I don't know, man. They're great, but I don't think they're perfect. Like, this was perfect.
Well, okay, so the Penguin, the big thing for me is that Reeves pulled it off here. Did the impossible thing that Disney's been trying to do, like ad infinitum over there, where it's like, we actually have something great and supplemental that it's a tie-in series that you feel like you're enriched for giving this show your time. And you feel you come out the other end with something, and you have a feeling like, okay, if I watch the Batman 2 and the Penguins,
I'm so stoked for Batman 2, dude. I'm so stoked.
Where it's like you've been rewarded for investing in the Penguin character, but you have a sense that he would have been fun had you not seen the show. But that's things that we're seeing kind of Colin Farrell get his practice in.
Exactly.
So again, this is a great arc for the Penguin making the play for power in the Gotham underworld. Lauren LaFranc. Here's the thing. Here's who we got to shout out. Lauren LaFranc. So again, Matt Reeves is going to get all the credit, but Lauren LaFranc was the showrunner. She's the one who really ran with this.
I'm actually really glad you're mentioning this because Matt Reeves is the name. But I mean, she did a lot of heavy lifting.
If you Yeah, there's a really great there was a companion podcast that happened week to week with
I
this.
watched all the behind the scenes stuff after the
Mhm.
episodes. I haven't looked into the podcast.
That's what I'm saying. It's kind of like an expanded version of that, where they
Uh-huh.
talk about, and again, a lot of really good stuff that went into it. Like they got everyone that, like Matt Reeves and Lauren LaFranc, I think, are on probably every episode or so. So I mean, everyone's involved.
Right.
Anyway, so she did an outstanding job as showrunner on this. Again, all of our performances are great. The best way I've kind of summarized the Penguin shows, it's basically all like the groundbreaking moments of the. Imagine like all the great kind of like eye-catching moments of The Sopranos with no wait time. We're just like, what if we just kind of got to the good? Like, what if we just cut all the good stuff in The Sopranos? Like, okay, Antonio's cheating on his wife. What if we just got rid of that?
I kind of feel like Breaking Bad already sort of was that.
Well, that's what I'm saying too. Is that it's in the same like vein of that, where you have like HBO did kind of like chart the original course. Like, here's a really great show. People are gonna have to invest in. There's gonna be all these subplots, but when we hit the big iconic moments, they will be great. But you're gonna have to sit through stuff to get there. Breaking Bad, they were smart about it. It's like, okay, let's just have everything be like eye catching. You don't want to blink,
Uh-huh.
And Penguin, I feel, just kind of in the Sopranos vein, is basically kind of like, again, it has a lot of Albuquerque verse in it in terms of just like it's very artful. It's like we're not wasting, again, we're using every part of the buffalo with our storytelling here. Everything comes back, everything's paid off, and you have, it feels like you're in Gotham City, and we have some really great artful sequences. Here's the episode 2. I was already sold. I thought episode 1 was a great pilot. Episode 2, I was so sold with the Bobby Darin sequence in the van. This the "Call Me Irresponsible," which I feel is like.
I mean, that song is basically your catnip, but yeah.
Yes, it is. But that's the thing, though. It's also a little bit of Bates Motel in there.
Sure, yeah.
But it's just the fact that we have that and just set a tone of like, how can it get any better from here? And dear God, did it?
Uh-huh.
So I can't say enough nice things about it. It's peak television, unequivocally. It's artfully directed, not a moment wasted, and the ending is it ends very hauntingly.
Oh yeah. Kogias, I respect your opinion, but I will just say the Sophia standalone episode was one of my favorites of the season, and I will leave it at that. It's probably my third favorite after the last 2 episodes, honestly.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, oh god, Cobra Kai season 6 part 2.
So going
just
from
end already.
So
just
going
fucking end already.
Going from peak television.
No, this show has gone off the rails completely, man. Honestly, I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt in part 1. Like, in part 1, it wasn't great. It was a step down from what we've had before. But I did think they were setting up some pretty interesting character conflict. All that just kind of goes out the window here. This is trash. This is the worst run of episodes that Cobra Kai has ever had. I genuinely don't think there's anything beyond, like, maybe the platform fight, and even that, some of the logistics are kind of ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's just, I don't know, man. This is just a nothing burger of a batch of episodes for me.
Again,
except Gunther. We stand Gunther.
Yes, we do. It was definitely a bit of a letdown. It had a few highlights, but so much of it is just like the team.
It's one of those things where I kind of feel like the show at this point is just kind of like running on the fumes of the actor's charisma.
Well, and that's it. We're again, basically, it's just the show is like they're out of direction because for some reason they've decided to extend it to 3 parts. Which was such a huge mistake in the long run. Where he thought maybe
Bakes on a Plane is the worst Cobra Kai episode in the whole run of the show.
I will fully get on board with that. It was terrible. And this is what I'm saying. So overall, it feels like because we're out of directions, we need to keep stalling until the big stuff happens. It's just there's so much teen BS that we've already moved past it's like the fact is we're in the end game
and
now.
all of these quote unquote teens straight up look like they're out of college at this point.
Well, to be fair, all media has that problem.
No, I know, but it's very noticeable here, man. It's very noticeable.
Apparently, we don't want to cultivate young actors.
You know what sucks about that is that the actor playing Miguel is probably the most noticeably aged. Like, that guy just. he just straight up has 5 o'clock shadow for days, man. I mean, you cannot convince me that that man is under 25 years old for the life of you. And he is the one that has the big, like, oh, I hope I get into college.
Oh,
you know?
Okay. True. But that's the thing. It feels like, very much in the last season, we got to make it count, where it's like we're in the end game now. We have to show how much these characters have grown, and we've regressed them to such a point where it's just, I'm throwing my hands up in the air, where this is, I will concur with exactly what Tiki said. This is possibly the most disappointing, batch of episodes we've gotten in the whole of the series, quite possibly.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, look, I'll say this though, ending quite shocking, and like a definitive, like, you definitively, you'll want to check out part 3 based on how part 2 ends. Like, okay, they definitely have my attention.
I mean, I guess, but honestly, at this point, it's just kind of like...
Well, out of curiosity and the fact we've been along for the ride so far, it's like, already we got to see how it ends, but 2 is like, wow, that was, I didn't really expect it to go there, and plus we just had the Saikai Taikai, and you have to imagine, well, we can't continue past there, and what do we do now?
It's kind of like I know you're not really familiar with this series, but it's kind of like the ending of Hunger Games Catching Fire, where the end of that book, it's like they're straight up like, no, bitch, we're breaking out of the Hunger Games. And then the next movie, the next book just does not have the Hunger Games in it. It's just all about like the revolution. So it kind of gave me that energy a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's see. Next up. Oh boy, I got to pull out my Always Sunny episode list here. Because honestly, Dragon, these seasons are kind of starting to run together a little bit. Although Always Sunny season 7, it is the Fat Mac season, so that's pretty distinct. And as you know, I kind of took a little bit of a break from Always Sunny because of that. Because frankly, I think they handled Fat Mac like way more tastefully than I thought they would. There wasn't nearly as much punching down about it as I thought there'd be. But I don't know. I think there's a... Let's see. With Always Sunny, I'm just going to kind of recap some of my favorite episodes. Honestly, there's a lot of strong ones here. Let's see. We have The Gang Goes to the Jersey Shore, of course. That's a great one. The Rum Ham.
Yeah, the Rum
Ham.
I told you the Rum Ham would be good.
Let's see, we have Frank Reynolds' Little Beauties, which, of course, the Kitty Diddler. That's classic. Good. Frank's Brother, honestly, I don't know how that episode's received. I thought that was fucking classic. I loved Frank's Brother. Specifically because I love the kind of, like it's so absurd that Frank Reynolds used to be, like, this very, very, like, morally upstanding person. And then, oh, God. Dragon, just how earnest and emotional Danny DeVito gets over Dynasty. That was great. Charlie McDinnis, The Game of Games, classic. And I see that we have a sequel episode to that coming up, so I'm looking forward to that. Let's see. The Antisocial Network, the one with the shusher, that was great. Honestly, after that, I kind of feel like it kind of peters off a little bit. Like, the high school reunion stuff is fun, but I don't necessarily think it needed to be 2 parts. Let's see. Thundergun Express, I honestly don't even really remember. How Mac Got Fat, I thought was a little bit, like, I don't know, like, it's impressive because they shot scenes for that in season 6, but it's just not that memorable. So I don't know. Overall, it's definitely got its strong points. I definitely like this season better than I like season 8, but I still can't help but feel that the best of It's Always Sunny is kind of behind me at this point, and that's a little bit of a drag. Still very enjoyable though. I've heard that, like, once you get into the double digits, it kind of starts to really become diminishing returns. So I don't know. We'll see how far I get. I still intend on watching the whole thing, if only because I think it'd actually be fun to watch a season live. But I've still got a lot of catching up to do. I don't know when season 17's coming out. All right. What's up next for you, Dragon?
All right. Frasier, season 2.
Frasier. This got canceled, right? Unfortunately.
Well, I mean, I didn't want to. It's not looking good. I don't think it's
Yeah.
official, but it's like the writing's on the wall. It doesn't look like it's coming back, but I don't think they've officially said. But here's the thing. So
So did we never get our opportunity to get the Niles reunion?
I'm afraid not, friend.
Dude, that's bullshit.
But again, they did say they were hoping to do that for season 3, though. So I don't know.
Well,
yeah. Well, now look, I don't disagree. It was a mistake not to not to bring them on if they were,
a little late for that now. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Anyway, I look. I continue to love Frasier being back. Period. And I think it's a compliment of the show that it feels like the original, which I think was like the big takeaway, where it's written and it feels like it's having the directors back and the writers does feel like a really good move, and having it feel like the original show and just kind of a modern context. I Here's the thing. We really developed here. We had a character in the first season, Alan. Alan essentially was our fake Niles. He was our fill-in for Niles. Now, obviously, no one will ever, glimpse our role model here on the channel, David Hyperius. We aspire to be. We are him. We are all Niles. We're all.
Yes.
But we. They developed...
I am Niles Crane. I am Niles Crane.
Niles. Anyway, so they developed the Alan character this season, which I thought was a good move, where we had like a little bit of pathos to him, where he was the idea is like beyond just being like the punchline kind of like drunk snooty character. He was he missed his grandson, and he basically, because he was estranged from his daughter because of his drinking, he never got to see his grandson. Which, I mean, added some nice pathos to that character, which I like. Now here's an episode that a little divisive. They returned to Seattle for an episode. For one episode, they went back to Seattle to KACL. And it's a mixed bag. It was nice to see they brought back kind of our old KACL characters. We had Bulldog and Gil, so they were back, and it was so great to see Dan Butler again. And they had a really nice little little nod to his real life in there with that character, which I thought was so loving. And it was like, man, that was really nice. That was a really fun, unexpected turn. And so it was great seeing him back. But the episode itself, not great.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of like it's a little kind of it's a little kind of hammy. Just like but it does feel like classic Frasier though. So it's a classic Frasier plot of like, okay, Frasier's doing something kind of hoity-toity, and it's like we see, oh no, I've ruined someone's life. I have to make this right. Now here's something fun though. Okay, I really appreciate this. To me, this is the highlight of season 2 for me. Patricia Heaton was on this season. Yes, we're not going to mention the other show Patricia Heaton was on. Out of fear that show will come and get us.
Right.
But I bring it up because Patricia Heaton, the other show that she did that was no one ever talks about because it only lasted a season, was a show called Back to You, which was basically what I believe it's what Kelsey Grammer did after Frasier, and it's what she did after her show. And it's called Back to You. And I thought it was such a lovely little, like, oh, that's why they got her in this. That's so cute. And like she and Frasier have a little relationship. And she's like she comes back, we kind of build it up where, she's kind of a more, it kind of parallels a little bit like Martin's relationship with the Wendy Malick character from Frasier, Rhonda. Anyway. So I thought it was nice. It's not looking good for season 3. It ended on a Christmas episode, oddly enough, yet again. But I hope there's like some slim chance it comes back so we can finally get Niles on there. But yeah, it's a shame that David I. Pierce, he was busy doing other stuff, but it's a shame he couldn't find the time.
Yeah. All right. Okay, Always Sunny season 8. I mean, like I said, I think this is a little bit of a downgrade from season 7. Looking at also Dragon, correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't know how much you know about this. Episode 2, I believe, was cut from Disney Plus / Hulu because I think some blackface or something was used. But you know what?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, so in the Lethal Weapon episodes, there's blackface.
Yeah, but you know what they do?
What?
they do not correct the episode numbering. They do not correct the episode titles. And so literally every episode that I'm watching on Disney Plus is labeled wrong. And it drove me fucking crazy.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, it was genuinely one of the most frustrating like streaming service experiences I've had in a while. Anyways, I honestly think this season starts a little weak. I think Pop Pop, the final solution, is basically just a bunch of like, isn't it funny that our grandpa was a Nazi jokes? I didn't really, I don't know, just didn't really think that was too funny. Honestly, the Marine Ponderosa Wedding Massacre might be one of my least favorite episodes of the show. I do not like Marine Ponderosa. I do not like the McFoibles. I think the McFoibles are kind of like
the McPoils.
Yeah, I think they're kind of like a step too far in the broad comedy department. They're probably my least favorite characters in the show.
Did you see the hostage episode?
That was a good one. That was a solid one. But I feel like they weren't going like totally ham with the whole like they're incest. Incest is these characters' only thing. And this episode very much was doing that. Yeah. And I genuinely kind of hated it. I mean, after that, it starts to pick up a little bit. Let's see. We have Charlie and Dee Find Love is really good. I like that episode specifically because I feel like that's the first time the waitress really gets to be just as unhinged as the rest of the gang, which is
great. That's a really good episode. I remember.
Yeah. The gang gets analyzed is fun. I kind of feel like it doesn't necessarily live up to the premise, but it's a fun time.
He's got donkey brains.
Yes. Charlie's mom has cancer. It's all right. Just all right. I think it's just decent. I don't know.
I'm trying to remember if season 9 or 10 has my all-time favorite episode in it, the Charlie episode.
Well, I'm going to go over them all, so...
Well, I know it's not in this season. I'm saying I don't know if it's the next season or season after.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Frank's back in business again. All right. Like, not one of my favorites. Perfectly fine. I think the last three, though. I think the last three really knock it out of the park. Charlie Rules the World is the one where Charlie gets super invested in the role-playing game. And then Dennis has that whole existential crisis about what is real. Like, that was great. That was solid. The Gang Dines Out is easily the best episode of the season.
Yeah, the waiter. Yeah.
Easily. Like, that is classic It's Always Sunny.
Just, the whole wine bottle thing.
Right. And then I think it ends on a high note as well. Reynolds versus Reynolds, the serial defense.
Oh, yes, that's a great one, yeah.
And that's where the what brain you said? Donkey brain. Yeah, I think that's where donkey brain comes from.
And we have the whole religious discourse thing.
And honestly, just the idea of Dennis Reynolds just fucking eating a whole ass bowl of cereal while he's driving.
Which that happened. He actually did that.
It's just so funny and so in character. And
I mean, the inspiration for the episode was that's what happened. Someone was eating a bowl of cereal and they got into a car accident. That's where they got the idea.
So yeah, I think the season ends really strong. I just think honestly, those first few episodes were rough. So we'll see where it goes in season 9. I know there's some bangers in season 9 from just based on what I know about the episodes, but I don't know. We're kind of getting to a point with Always Sunny where I think the high point was maybe seasons I want to say maybe 4 through 6. I kind of think the show sort of peaked at this point, but I'm still watching for those episodes the Gang Dines Out and the serial defense, and I feel like those episodes still are really fantastic, and I'm still watching for them. Honestly, if I hit episodes where I'm I'm not really feeling this one, I won't skip them, but I'm not going to pay super close attention to them either. So
let me know when you get to Charlie work.
Charlie work?
Yep, Charlie work.
Okay, I will do that.
That's possibly one. I don't know if that's my favorites, but definitely one of my all-time favorites.
I will say one of the things I do appreciate about this season, as far as just the character stuff, is I feel like this season is finally the season where Charlie is kind of starting to develop a little bit more agency. And from everything you guys have told me, that just kind of continues as the show goes on. So I'm looking forward to that. I think Charlie is really kind of starting to, I mean, obviously he's always been great, but I think he's really starting to hit his stride. Dennis continues to be my favorite character. I just think the way that Dennis is played, just how they play him up, is just a genuine psychopath.
Oh, yeah.
It's so funny.
Yep.
I still don't think I still think the Dennis system is probably my absolute favorite episode. All right. Next up, we have Behind the Monsters. Actually, you have the next three, so why don't you go ahead and speed run this?
Right. Okay. So this was a series on Shudder. I wanted to kind of squeeze in while I had the free trial. Basically, it takes kind of explores the horror icons in kind of an abbreviated documentary form. So you had they cover Michael Myers, Candyman, Chucky, Krueger, Voorhees, and Pinhead.
Who you call Pinhead?
That'd be funny if Doug Bradley was doing a parody of that. Anyway, yeah, so I was mainly dialed into the ones because again, I kind of at this point I kind of know Krueger and Jason like the back of my hand. And I just saw the documentary on Chucky, so I mainly keyed in on the other ones. I mean, I watched them all, but I kind of started out of order, so I made sure to get in Michael Myers, who again, very interesting. Candyman, which again horrifying. I definitely want to get Candyman in since Tony Todd's passing, kind of learn a little bit about the role and everything. Where that was a thing where he very much I think he said, I did the third Candyman for money purely.
Uh-huh.
And you got Pinhead, which I think is the most foreign of the bunch for me. Again, has a really cool aesthetic, but really I have no idea what's going on in those movies.
I remember I dated a girl once who was super into those movies. I was like, it is above me, man. It is above me. It's above my headspace.
So the point of this thing is that it's about the highs and lows of the franchises with these characters. It kind of talks about the characters, and then it kind of there's a quick little overview of the franchise highs and lows, which it's economized. It's nice and breezy. Nothing major.
Uh-huh.
Okay. TV on the Edge. So TV on the Edge is a 4-episode docu-series on Max. It's like a CNN thing. I've seen a lot of the CNN history of television kind of things. It's pretty much what this was. Takes a look at. I like the structure of this though. It takes these iconic and kind of controversial, kind of big singular moments and kind of contextualizes them in the episodes. So you had specifically Dan Quayle going after Murphy Brown for being an unwed, single mom. Which basically Murphy Brown responded by making fun of Dan Quayle within the show, which is really funny. Oprah, her basically fat shaming people.
Oh God!
Admittedly, of the 4 episodes, I'm just going to call it out. Maybe.
I also think if you were to do an Oprah episode, why wouldn't you do the Tom Cruise thing? That's clearly the most iconic Oprah moment.
That's the thing. Admittedly, of the bunch,
even the Million Little. The plagiarism one. I want to say Million Little Fibers, but I know that's a South Park. A Million Little Pieces, I think, where she had the guy Did you hear about this? Where she had the guy, the author of one of her book club picks on, and it turned out the dude had plagiarized the whole thing, and so she had him back on his show and just totally put him on blast.
That sounds amazing. I did not.
They actually did a South Park parody of it.
Anyway, so basically, it's about Oprah's weight loss journey, which essentially the episode contextualizes basically in a modern context. People looking back, man, she's just fat shaming everyone, which to me a little overly PC. Just a little bit on that one. Just, anyway. Where it's come on, it's it was the diet craze. Wasn't it then basically turns into a thing about Ozempic is bad, which okay. Anyway, then we have Ellen Comes Out, which is basically the big, about her, her show where, she.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
Again, was a huge. But here's the thing: no one ever talks about the Ellen show and how essentially it was kind of Ellen's version of Seinfeld, which is kind of interesting. At least for a while, and then of course when she came out, it completely turned into something else, which is what the episode's about. And last but not least,
just recently listened to a podcast all about Ellen's energy adventure.
Yeah.
So I kind of got a lot of context just based on that podcast.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, lastly, Kanye West, saying George Bush
Ooh.
doesn't care about black people.
Oh God! Oh,
So
that is
this was
far from the most controversial thing Kanye West has said in his
well,
career.
this is the thing, Tiki. This is the one of any of these I would recommend you watch because this is the most interesting. It's really great because it basically shows how people like rally around something, and then years later, after all the other crazy stuff Kanye West has done, like they look back on it. It's like
Oh,
it's
that's
just like
great.
it's basically this thing of like they see like, oh man, Kanye West is deteriorating mental state. This was maybe we shouldn't like made put him on T-shirts or just say look at the prophet speak,
Oh
kind of
man,
a thing.
yeah.
Anyway, so that was okay. Last we're gonna move on to the last thing here. Tulsa King season 2.
Uh-huh.
I love this show, man. Tulsa King's great. I love Stallone in this. He's a great lead. Um, Again, we basically season 2. He's reconnected with his family, which was kind of like something he was kind of working towards in the first season. I was really afraid season 2, with how it ended, was going to be a whole season dedicated to a courtroom. Like he's going to be in the courtroom the whole season. They did it in one episode. I was so proud. Like, oh my god, we're not stuck in like doing a court case for the whole season. This is wonderful.
Nice, nice.
We bring in some really great heavyweights that really surprised me. We have like Neil McDonough, who I love, and I praised all sorts of in the Batman Assault on Arkham thing we talked about recently. And Frank Grillo. I love me some Frank Grillo. He's in it. He's like another heavy. He's kind of one of the bad guys this season, at least bad guys in quotes. Dwight, that's the Stallone character. He's expanding his control of Tulsa. Amazingly, we have all this. We kind of he amazingly eases tensions over a meeting where they have milkshakes, which is really impressive. Like he's like sitting down with all the
Is Daniel Plainview involved?
well, you think it might go that way though. That's the thing.
Right, right.
I mean, here's you joke, but he's essentially saying, I drink your milkshake. That's essentially what he's saying in that scene, though. So it's kind of you're not far off.
Mm.
Anyway, so again, it just the season wraps up smoothly, and then there's like season 3 bait. It sounds like Stallone's like he's entering the like contracts and stuff. Like they desperately want him. Like, please do more Tulsa King, but it's like a thing where okay, we have a nice ending here, and then oh my god, it's kind of an oh my god, where do we go from here moment? It's like it was impressive. It was a really good season. Like we put his driver through some stuff. This like Tyson, like the young kid who's like basically his version of Vic in the show, kind of was put through he had a big story. So I don't know. It was the season they did a really good job on season 2.
Nice, nice. All righty. Let's see. Next up, we have ketchup. Okay, let's switch things out here. All right, woman of the hour. I like this a lot. I'm not as thrilled about it as you are. I honestly think the pacing is pretty wonky. I, I honestly, Dragon, I respect what the structure is going for with, like cutting back to his previous crimes and then like basically like we're kind of following in non-chronological order. We're kind of following like the victim that's eventually going to get him caught. I like the payoff of that. I think it's a lot of wheel spinning to get there. I don't know, man. I kind of feel like the thing that let me down about this is that the actual dating game element, I don't know how much you could have actually done with it, but I just felt like it was a little half-baked for what it, like, I honestly feel like most of the interesting stuff in this movie kind of takes place outside of the actual dating game. I kind of feel like the dating game thing is almost kind of like a gimmick in the movie a little bit. I don't know. Anna Kendrick is fine. It's not one of my favorite performances of hers. I think the directing's solid for for a first-time director for her. I thought the dude playing the killer was decent enough, but I don't know. He didn't really send shivers down my spine like like a Dexter villain. I think if this dude was cast as a Dexter villain, it'd be pretty weak sauce casting. So I don't know, man. This did not. I was really looking forward to this. I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. It did not land for me the way I wanted to. I think it really does come down to the pacing.
All right.
Okay. Mystery movie. What do you got?
Casa Bonita, mi amor.
Okay, nice.
So I
I
mean,
mean,
look,
look, it's not Yates, but I'm sure you enjoyed it, right?
so that's the thing. I was sold by the premise when you described it to me, so it was very much like
The whole
I
Walt
looked.
Disney and Roy Disney thing.
I mean, pretty well. It was more so just the whole like it's a documentary about buying the business. But yeah,
But tell me the Walt Disney Roy Disney thing wasn't accurate though with Matt and Trey.
it's not inaccurate. But yeah, I just here's the thing. I mean, I love docs that are like underdog stories or anatomy of a failure or like bit off more than we could chew, and this is kind of in that vein. So I really so I had a good time with it. The idea of like they buy their childhood Shangri-La and it's a money pit.
It's literally like the childhood dream turned nightmare.
So I love that premise. That sold me instantly. That intrigued me. And I looked into it, and it's like I think I like that you don't have to be a South Park fan to enjoy it. It's very
Oh
much
no,
about,
I that's one of the things I really respect about the execution of it. Like as a South Park fan, I think the big thing that kind of draws me to it is the fact that Matt and Trey did most of the voices for like, in Black Bart's Cave and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Like that would I would go there specifically just to hear all the voice clips and stuff. But
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So no, it's a very solid doc. I did enjoy it. I thought it was worthwhile watch. And I mean, part of me is like, I wonder what other documentaries they can make, but they'd have to do something documentary worthy, though. That's the thing.
Yeah. Also, I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly like when this was filmed or like how much they clear up at the end, but the place is doing absolute gangbusters now. Like it's literally impossible to get a reservation. There's like a waiting list that it's basically like a Club 33 level waiting list at this point.
Well,
Like
there you go. At least
I
there's.
believe the waiting list is literal years.
I mean, do you think they made their money back?
At this point, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have It's What's Inside. It's a very high concept movie. It reminds me a lot of Bodies, Bodies, Bodies from a couple years ago. It's another kind of like young adults get together for a party and they're playing a game and the game goes wrong. But it's definitely got a sci-fi twist. And we actually you do kind of know the main actor here. The main actor, I forget his name, but he played Jonathan Crane on Gotham.
Oh.
Yeah. So, hey, some connective tissue, I guess. It's not Corey Michael Smith. I would love it if it was Corey Michael Smith, but I think he does a fine job. Essentially, the premise here is that this main guy, he's like a tech bro, and he kind of had a falling out from the rest of the group, and this is sort of like a reunion of a bunch of college buddies when one of the main people in the friend group is getting married. There's a whole bunch of boiling tension. There's a whole bunch of like relationship drama, and people slept with each other. People have feelings for each other, even though they're in relationships with other people, that kind of shit. And this, the Jonathan Crane, I'm just going to call him Jonathan Crane. I'm sorry. I know that's not the character's name.
The actor has a family, right?
God. He essentially brings this invention to the party, which essentially, like, what you do is you attach like these, essentially like like the car battery volts.
Yeah.
Yeah, you attach those to the temples of your forehead, and somehow that makes you swap bodies with other people. So essentially, like, you're seeing the actors, but they're all in other people's bodies, and essentially the game is to figure out who is in whose body. And it's very high concept. I don't really think the movie does a great job of explaining it, and I do think it goes a little bit. It's one of those movies where in the third act it kind of gets a little too full of itself with the twists. Like, actually, I wasn't this guy. I was this guy the whole time, and gets a little full of itself in that regard. I still had a lot of fun with it. I think it's paced very well. I think the directing is on point. It's actually visually very interesting. Like, I was surprised by that for a Netflix movie with a no-name director. I think I'm actually genuinely curious to see what else this director does, because I think visually it looks great. There's a lot of really interesting camera work, some interesting perspective changes. But yeah, the actual convoluted nature of the premise and the fact that they do get way too twist happy at the end kind of brings it down to like another 6 out of 10. But I think overall it's a stronger movie than Heretic. But not by a big margin. It's definitely watchable, but it's not going to be on my top 20 or anything. But I had fun with it. All right. Watchmen Part 1.
Yes, so this was they did an animated version of the Watchmen.
Is this just another retelling, right? It's not like a prequel.
Yeah. So this is no, this is not like the HBO Watchmen. It's not like sorry, it's not that was a sequel. This is not like before Watchmen. That's what you're thinking. This
We
is
have
not
so
before
much Watchmen material at this point.
Well, that's the thing. So this is them taking an honest stab. So in the past, there was a motion comic done of Watchmen, which basically the production values were pretty good. The problem was there's one guy doing all the voices, which you have like a male narrator doing all the female voices. Just kind of dumb.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so this is it feels very much kind of like a radio play that is animated. Now, the make or break for this is so we have a really good director on this. We have Brandon Veidt on this, or Vitti, sorry. Brandon Vitti is on this. Now, he directed Batman Under the Red Hood, which of course very well loved. And this guy's he's done some Young Justice. This guy's worked with DC stuff, so he's top tier director. It was very well executed. I'm going to say that, save for one element. So I think that the way they've adapted the story is really good. They're going to do it in 2 parts, which again, I initially was thinking, when I'm watching this, I'm still by the end of this, and we'll have to see how part 2 turns out. I mean, I'm still wondering, like, man, are they going to have? I mean, they've done a really good job of kind of compressing most of this story into 1 part. But I mean, it's such a long story. I wonder if they're going to be able to do it in 2. I mean, versus 3. My instinct would be you want to do that in 3 acts, but I mean, basically Part 1 does it from the beginning of the story to Rorschach's unmasking. That's essentially what Part 1 is. So and again, they do it very well, and they work a lot in there. It's very dense in the material, and it doesn't feel like it drags. It feels like narratively we're doing some really good stuff there. Where it feels like we're kind of traversing our stories. Like we haven't trimmed out anything where it feels like it's missing, but we kind of rearranged it slightly.
Nice.
But the one element I feel, because we have really good casts for this too, but there's one miscasting, and I feel really bad because I love the actor they got for this role. I don't think, and he loves the material, and he's doing the best job he can, but he's trapped. So Titus Welliver, the guy who plays Bosch.
Well, that guy's another Lost alumni.
Yeah, so from Lost and for Batman Long Halloween, he played Carmine Falcone. Great actor. I love Titus Welliver. He was even in Mando.
He's in Spartacus too.
Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff. He's in pretty much everything. I love Titus Welliver. The problem is, so we cast him as Rorschach, and he loves Rorschach, and he loves Watchmen. He was honored to do the role. The problem is, he's doing it like Jackie Earle Haley. Because again, it's kind of like a thing like Jackie Earle Haley did a very definitive take on Rorschach, but on watching it, he's the voice that stands out. And here's why I think he was miscast. Okay, it's not that he's doing a bad job. It's just it's pretty much just Jackie Earle Haley, but not Jackie Earle Haley. The problem is, we have an actor in this movie in another role, and like a radio play, some of them are doing multiple characters. We have a great actor who I've had the pleasure of meeting, by the way, who is in this movie. It is Jeffrey Combs, the voice of the Question from Justice League. And of course, the Question is the basis for Rorschach. So he is in this movie. It feels very much like, if we're going to put him in this movie, why on God's green earth is he not Rorschach?
Right.
It's like literally the basis for Rorschach in Justice League Unlimited. Combs essentially is playing that character like Rorschach. Why would we? It can't be because he's too old, because he's a grizzled homeless man. Why not? Anyway, so that's again, nothing. I don't want to be harsh on Titus Welliver because it's okay. What he does is okay, but it just feels like we literally have the perfect choice in this movie playing Moloch and all these other small roles. Anyways, that's really my only real grievance with it. That, and I will say, some people, it has an animation style that's a little akin to the Marvel What If style, but it's kind of motion comic-y because they wanted to represent the comic as much as possible. So it's kind of, that's going to make or break it for a viewing audience if they can get behind the animation style or not. I'm okay with it because I like the story and I like what they're doing, but
For sure.
So we'll see if they're able to if they're able to pull off the amount of story they have left remaining in part 2. That's the big hat trick. They're going to be able to pull that off.
All right.
All right.
Okay, let's see.
Oh, one last thing. They put one of my boys in it. They put Matthew Rhys in it as Dan Dryberg, which is my favorite casting in the whole movie. I love Matthew Rhys. So I love they got him. Okay, go on.
All right. In the Tall Grass. This is based on a short story that I read as part of my book club. It's part of a larger collection of short stories by Joe Hill, who's Stephen King's son.
Yeah.
And Stephen King actually helped with this one. He co-wrote this with Joe Hill. And I got to tell you, Dragon, reading that collection of short stories, Joe Hill really got to me as an author more than Stephen King ever has. I truly think this guy's got a knack for it. I'm excited to check out more of his stuff.
Well, I'll tell you what you got to check out. If you like Joe Hill, you got to watch Lock and Key.
Oh, yeah.
That's
okay.
him.
Okay.
That's all Joe Hill.
Right. No, I think the guy's got a knack. Does Lock and Key have really good endings?
You mean like the end of the season, or you mean end of the episodes?
Both.
I mean, I'm trying to think back to how the episodes specifically, because I know the season enders definitely, it's definitely keep you.
Because that's the main thing that really stuck out to me about Joe Hill is the fact that like his short stories, man, just across the board, the endings were fucking bangers.
I think the season finales will get you. I don't know about like it gets serialized, so I don't know how.
Fair enough.
The point being, I think you'd like it.
But in the Tall Grass, essentially, what this is it's kind. I know it's kind of hard to describe, but at the same time, it's very simple. It's got my boy Dragon. It's got one of my boys. I will proudly declare this guy is one of my boys. Patrick Wilson.
Yeah.
Truly one of the godfathers of horror right now.
Hey, we have a connect here. We got Matthew Rhys playing the character that Patrick Wilson played.
Yeah, there you go. Patrick Wilson. Okay, so essentially the premise is that in a lot of ways this reminds me of Jeepers Creepers more than anything else. Which, yes, I know the director of that movie is a fucking creep and a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But I still think that movie holds up. I hate the director, but I think the actual movie holds up. But it's essentially like a brother and sister on a road trip, which is very much what gives me the Jeepers Creepers vibe. They pull over to the side of the road, and there's this big cornfield. Essentially, it's tall grass, but it kind of has the vibe of a cornfield. And they hear this kid calling for help from the cornfield, like, "Help me! I'm lost! Help me!" They go in after him, and then they realize that this cornfield is essentially like purgatory. Like you can, like, once you are in the cornfield, you cannot get out of it. And Patrick Wilson plays the father of the kid, and I will say the actor playing the kid, he does a fantastic performance as well. Like, honestly, genuinely one of the best. I know this isn't a 2024 movie, but it's one of the best child performances I've seen all year. He really blew me away, especially after reading the short story. Like, he really got what was so disquieting about this kid in his performance. But Patrick Wilson plays the father of the kid, and the father of the kid is just like, I mean, they've been out there in that cornfield, you don't know how long, because time is all distorted and messed up. And so Dragon, he is just unfucking hinged in a way that I have never seen Patrick Wilson be unhinged before. Like, he's great. The one thing with this movie that I'm not crazy about is that they do extend the short story, which I understand. The short story is only about like 50 pages or so. You kind of have to throw some more stuff in there. But they throw in, like, the sister's ex-boyfriend into the mix, like he's coming to rescue them because they've been missing, and he ends up in the cornfield. And then there's this whole rivalry between him and the brother, there's this whole thing where the boyfriend calls the brother out on being in love with the sister. I was not crazy about that subplot. And again, I definitely think that they make some subversions from the book Like, for example, they actually use a location that's adjacent to the cornfield that is in the book, but they don't actually go into it in the book. And that kind of throws me off. Like, I get logically why you would do that for a movie because you want to have more locations. But I think the power of the short story is just in, like you as a reader are kind of lost in this cornfield along with the characters. And I think to have a visual break from the cornfield just honestly kind of interrupts the tension. And honestly, I don't really think it explains that clearly why, like, okay, they're in the bowling alley now. Great, they're out of the cornfield. But no, they're somehow stuck in the cornfield. They somehow, once they've escaped the bowling alley, they have to run back into the cornfield. Like, I get that Patrick Wilson is chasing them, but must you go back into the cornfield? There's a road right there. What the fuck? Like, that honestly threw me the fuck out of it, man. After that, I was kind of done. After that, I was like, nah, you blew my suspension of disbelief with that at this point. But it's still a fun time. Obviously, Patrick Wilson is the major highlight here. I honestly think all the other cast members besides the kid are just okay. But it's worth watching for the Wilson. I mean, Patrick Wilson is, again, this dude is like, he is truly carrying the torch of modern horror. I think Patrick Wilson is just an icon of modern horror right now. All right. Sharksploitation. Love that title.
Yeah, so this is one of the Shudder documentaries I watched. It's basically about the culture of Jaws knockoffs.
Oh, okay, I figured.
Yeah, so this is it's fun seeing the shark movie. Basically,
that one of Brad Jones's friends has a cameo in a Sharknado movie.
Really?
And he uses a trident as a weapon, which is like very memorable.
Very, very, very Brick from Anchorman.
Right.
I threw a trident. I killed him with a trident. well, Brick, that's murder. You might want to stay relative for a while. Brick killed a guy. Anyway, Anchorman love fest aside, it's fun seeing the shark movie genre kind of explained, including explored and everything, where we have we see the Jaws sequels and the rip-offs, and we have like Joe Dante talking about Piranha, and even the modern examples of the Meg. But here's what's interesting about it. We talk about, we highlight the damage, much like blaxploitation. We also highlight, kind of like the damage of the exploitation film, and that sharks after Jaws, sharks were starting to become an endangered species because people like for sport were like hunting sharks, like they're a menace. Look at that Spielberg movie. We're gonna blow up all the sharks. Go after them. So because in reality, sharks really they don't really attack unless provoked, and even so, it's like unless there's blood in the water. So really, sharks aren't really they aren't like the horror go-to icon. They aren't slashers of the sea, so to speak.
Right.
So that's what's really that's the real sell of it for me, where we kind of explore the genre and like all the varying degrees of silliness, but also there's some consequence, and there's like a positive, and that did get people into marine biology and stuff. So it's fun.
Okay, fair enough. All right, next up we have Lake Michigan Monster. Dragon, you never saw Hundreds of Beavers, right?
I meant to, but I didn't.
I think you should. It's free on YouTube now. Honestly, for a long time, it was, well, not for a long time, but like when it first came out, it was one of those things where you could only buy it on demand. But now it's like, it's all over the place. It's on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's on Prime as well. So like, yeah, I would definitely check it out. This is the first feature from the director and the crew. The director is also the main actor. He's the main actor in this as well. Let me tell you, Dragon, this thing, it just absolutely radiates Super Academy energy.
Ooh.
It just, the humor is so on point with Super Academy. It's not a superhero parody, but just like the delivery, the jokes, the sense of humor, it is so on. That was just the vibe I was getting the whole way through Super Academy. Essentially, it's about a very self-serious sea captain guy who recruits a team who he just literally calls like very, yeah, again, he's very self-aggrandizing. He's like, you are the best crew ever, and I love you as my crew. And he talks like that. He talks like this the whole movie. One of my favorite things about his performance is that he always calls the crew members, and they have very ridiculous names, but he always calls them by their first and last names. There's 3 of them. I don't remember the third one, but the ones I really remember, Sean Shaughnessy, which is just really fun to say in that voice. Oh, you're a brave man, Sean Shaughnessy. And then the love interest has the most fucking ridiculous name, Midge Pepsi. I mean, tell me that just doesn't feel like a Super Academy joke in itself right there. Midge Pepsi. I think the first half of this movie's awesome. I think the first half of this movie is just the crew running around, trying to catch this monster. Plot-wise, it goes way off the rails. Like, I'm saying, Dragon, this movie goes into some fucking wild directions that I did not necessarily care for. The crew splits up about halfway through the runtime, and after that, I kind of feel like it loses a lot of momentum. And after that, it does get technically more impressive. It kind of goes into that sort of like proto Hundreds of Beavers mold where they're using a lot of green screen very practically. It is visually very impressive. And I will say in the first half, it is very student film. Like visually, you can tell it's a big downgrade from Hundreds of Beavers. But then in the second half, again, plot-wise, character-wise, I'm not thrilled about it. But at least visually, there's some really cool action. There's this one scene where the main character is getting chased underwater by this assassin character, and this assassin just keeps throwing shit at him. Like, and I'm talking like he's like firing guns, he's throwing knives. It's like he's throwing everything he possibly can at this guy, and he keeps on avoiding. It's like a great kind of comedy of like, it's almost kind of like a parody of like, you know, like the Matrix dodging the bullets kind of thing, you know, because since he is throwing all this stuff underwater, it does give the guy who's avoiding it kind of a little bit of advantage. But yeah, the plot stuff is really like I genuinely don't even want to tell you how messy the plot stuff is, because I want you to watch the first half of this movie just for the Super Academy vibes. But I will say, like, honestly, once the crew splits up, you can turn it off. I don't think you're going to like the rest of it, honestly. But that first half is so potent in that sort of like ridiculous, campy, self-aware Super Academy humor, and I did love it for that. But yeah, the second half falls off pretty hard. That seems to be kind of a running theme with some of these movies here this month. All right, getting towards the end here.
I wonder what Jacob Gulliver would think of it.
Dude, Jacob Gulliver, I asked him, I told him that he should watch that and Hundreds of Beavers. He said he's really wanted to watch Hundreds of Beavers, but he's waiting for it to be agreed upon as a movie night pick, which I think is fair. But yeah, no, I genuinely would be really curious to see what Gulliver thinks of Lake Michigan Monster in particular. Like, Hundreds of Beavers is obviously the better movie of the two, but I think Lake Michigan Monster very much has his sensibilities, specifically with the humor. All right. Okay, next up.
All right, King on Screen.
King on Screen.
Yeah, so this was a documentary on the film adaptations of Stephen King's books.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
This was good. Aside from this really weird opening and kind of wraparound bear at the very end, but there's like this really weird, like, kind of in quotes. It wasn't a device that was like woven throughout the whole thing, like annoyingly. It was just like it's just very random and at the top, which I think is intended to feel like Stephen King. Basically, it's just like some lady. I believe some lady walks into a bookstore. But we did it like a Stephen King movie. Like, had all these references in the background and stuff. It was just hey, I'm going to watch a Stephen King documentary. And then we're in the middle of a movie and some ladies walking into it. It just feels very weird and disjointed. But aside from that, when the thing actually starts, It's good. We have we cover. I don't think we cover every single thing. We cover a lot of the biggies, and for example, I think some of the best material was Frank Darabont talking about his Stephen King stories,
I
working
mean,
on
naturally, yeah. If anyone's good at Stephen King adaptations, it's that guy.
specifically him talking about King on the set of Green Mile. I
Uh,
think one of the funniest things he mentioned was that Stephen King wouldn't let him know how the book ends because he basically, as he came to find out, Stephen King hadn't finished the book.
oh God.
It was this thing of he read he was sold on Green Mile. You got to tell me how it ends or something along these lines. He says no, they have to buy the books basically because he had no idea how it ends.
Oh my God.
So we're lucky we got Green Mile the way we did.
Great.
So there's some tension on Misery and The Shining. Here's the interesting thing. So again, Stephen King doesn't like The Shining. Here's something you'd love, Tiki. So in the making of Doctor Sleep, Stephen King actually was sold on that, but initially it was a thing of it was okay, look, we gotta have some references in the movie. He says, no, stick to the book like the plan is, no. And the way they sold him on it was the big issue he had with The Shining. The Shining was written basically Stephen King kind of grappling with his own addictions. And the point of it was, Jack Nicholson character, he wouldn't, basically, he would not drink. And of course, he went to a bar in The Shining, which very much is in contrast to
really
that. Which
Stanton's problem with that movie? That's
that
bizarre.
well, that was the personal
I
problem.
mean, I get it on a
was
personal level. I get it, but still, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Fundamentally, that was I'm saying if he boiled it down to one scene that represented what he didn't like of it, that was the scene. That was the scene for him.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure there was a myriad of other things, but that was the one they highlight. Anyways, the point being, Doctor Sleep, the way they sold it on him is okay. Look, we're gonna put it at the bar and everything from the movie, but he's gonna go up there and he's gonna hesitate. He's gonna have a hesitation at the bar, with the drink, which that's what sold King on. It's okay. So it's again, it doesn't deal with every movie, but I thought it was really good. Again, aside from those weird wraparounds, it was pretty solid. It was informative. It's nice learning about King. King's an interesting guy.
He is. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, getting towards the end here. Why do Mama Tambien? Have you heard of this? Do you know about this? Because it's a pretty iconic movie.
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, you definitely know the director. The director is Alfonso Cuarón.
Oh yeah, him.
Yeah. So I actually this was actually in the halcyon days, in the early days of me being a fan of film and not just superhero movies and Lord of the Rings and all that shit. I remember this coming out, and I remember it getting great reviews, and I also remember it being my first exposure to an NC-17 movie. And just there's absolutely I remember it coming out and being well, it sounds interesting. There's no fucking way I'm ever going to see it because I'm never, I'm 13. I'm never going to be allowed to see this movie. I'm going to be 13 forever. God. Yeah, no, this is great. I mean, it's not the highlight of the month for me, but it's I'm glad that I checked this off my list. And ironically enough, Dragon, I swear to God, this Hulu and Disney Plus merger, Dragon Paige Novak would be so upset at the Hulu and Disney Plus merger, Dragon, because it has muddied the waters so much. This fucking NC-17, again, much like Anora, the sex in this movie is very graphic, but it's also very much the whole idea of this movie is that it's two college best friends who are on a road trip with this older woman who happens to be the divorced wife of one of their cousins. And they are idiotically, they think they're trying to woo her, but this woman is very clearly these boys are my fucking puppets. You know what I mean? And the sex that they get into is very much oh, they are children. They do not actually know how to have sex, And I like that. I like that the movie, it is graphic with it, but it's also yeah, no, we are kind of exploring like, and I don't think that's explored like again with the whole like, oh yeah, yeah. God, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry.
Again, haunting my nightmares.
Yeah. No, but seriously, I feel like in a lot of my problems with sex scenes in movies are just like it's just there for the titillation of the audience, and it's there to be like, oh, look how much of a badass this guy is, or whatever. Not the case at all in this movie. In this movie, the sex scenes are very much meant to illustrate how childish these characters still are, and how much of a control over the situation this woman has. And I think that's a really good dynamic. My favorite part of this movie is actually the narration. The narration is done. It does. I'm sure other movies have done this, but I can't think of any that have done this where the narration isn't done by any character. It's just like like an off-screen narrator, like an omnipresent narrator. And essentially what he'll do is it's like a road trip through Mexico, right? And it's kind of showing the state of Mexico in the time period as it's going through a civil unrest. And essentially, like, it's kind of hard to describe the narration. You kind of just have to watch it. But essentially what they'll do is the movie will pause, like, every, like, 5 to 10 minutes or so after a certain beat, and it'll give you just a very sobering dose of reality in the narration. So, like, for example, they come across this beach, and there's this dude who, like, is, like, very jovial, and he runs this touring company, and, and he's a fisherman, and he's just a super nice guy, and they have all these fun adventures on the beach with this dude. And then it freeze frames, and it's like, this guy lost his business 5 years later and ended up becoming a janitor. Stuff like that. It's not a great example, but basically the whole idea is that it's kind of relishing in, like, in the oh God, I'm gonna say it, Dragon. I'm gonna say it. It's kind of reveling in the arrogance of youth. But at the same time, it's like the narration is a very sobering reminder that these kids are fucking children, and they are idiots, and they do not know what life has in store for them. And the narration builds up, it gets more serious, it gets more connected to the characters as the movie goes on, and up to the point where the last line of narration is goddamn haunting. Like, it genuinely sent chills down my spine. So I don't think this is as good as a Nora. It's very much in that same conversation, though. I think this Wicked and Nora, obviously Wicked is the outlier. It would be if Wicked was more accurate to the movie, or I'm sorry, to the book, to the Wicked book, it would have hardcore sex. But alas. But no, I don't know, man. It's very well done. It's one of Alfonso Cuarón's first films. This is the movie that got him fucking Harry Potter, which is wild to think about. But at the same time, it kind of makes sense because Harry Potter is a coming-of-age story. And this, for as much as it is explicit in its sexual nature, is a coming-of-age story. That's very much the point. So, yeah, I don't know. This did leave an impact on me, for sure. I don't know if you'd enjoy it, but it definitely stimulated my stupid little art house film brain. All right. Okay. Next up.
All right. Leap of Faith, William Friedkin on The Exorcist.
Yep.
Yeah, so
I think the story of The Exorcist is just genuinely like, I remember watching the True Hollywood story of The Exorcist back in the day and being genuinely terrified.
Yeah. It's accurate. It's pretty terrifying. Yeah, so Alexander Felipe, the guy, he's the director on this. This is one of his documentaries. And this guy is a great documentary, especially on kind of like pop culture related stuff. He did The People versus George Lucas and 7852 and the Alien Memory, The Origins of Alien. So I like that if you look at that guy's filmography, each film is different than the last. Like, he has a really unique style with each kind of like pop culture documentary. So this one now, admittedly, that said, This one's pretty much the most direct of the bunch. So this is just very much okay. So he's finally done kind of a guy sitting in the chair kind of a movie.
Uh-huh.
So this one is very much like this one. He's actually able to sit down. Of course, the one main reasons I watched this was Freakin' passed away. Seeing The Exorcist. So, I figured give it a shot. But interestingly, he's actually able to sit down with the director himself, who lived and breathed The Exorcist. Man, he loves this movie. Even this is like him, like a few years before the end. But he's it's bittersweet now that he's passed on. But like he was obsessed with this film, and that's what they get into in the conversation.
Sure.
It's pretty much it's an in-depth breakdown on the movie. He's just talking about what went into making the movie pretty much at each stage and the inspirations and kind of what he was going for. And it's the most down to earth in terms of style, but it was it's like very interesting. I think he got into, if I recall it correctly, he got into a really bad argument with Bernard Herrmann over the score. It was like, oh my god, the guy scored Psycho. And the guy kind of was a psycho, where he was very much like he was very rude to him, and he basically, you don't want me scored? No, I don't want you to score my movie. No. Yeah, Bernard Herrmann, if I understand, like he really post Psycho, he really got a kind of an ego about him. Like he really didn't, like for example, he couldn't stand like hearing the Psycho score anymore.
Oh God, really?
That's the thing that he really is, because I guess because again he heard it all over the place after the movie came out. Perhaps, I don't know, or something. Anyway, but yeah, this is, if you like The Exorcist, this is the documentary for you, friend. I'll tell you that.
Nice. Okay, and finally we come to the Apple Dumpling Gang. Dragon, I don't know, it's a long shot, I think, but did you ever see this as a kid or anything? Do you ever watch
no, not this branch of Don Knotts familiarity, I'm afraid not.
I mean, yes, that is absolutely the reason I watched it, no doubt about that. But yeah, I gotta say, Don Knotts is actually weirdly subdued in this movie. Like, he's fine, he's funny enough, but
where are the apples?
God. I wish that's what this movie was about. I fucking wish.
We're a bunch of good apples.
He's actually played the straight man to Tim Conway. They're kind of like a duo of bumbling robbers that the town just straight up does not take seriously. Like, at a certain point, they sentence them to be hung, not because they actually intend on hanging them, just because they want to get them the fuck out of the town. Like, the town is just kind of fed up with these idiots. But the actual story is Bill Bixby, of all people.
Ooh.
Yeah, he plays the main character.
I love me some Bill Bixby.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, he's genuinely pretty good here. And then Susan Clark is the love interest. And I gotta tell you, man, this lady, she genuinely has some Marion Ravenwood energy to her. I thought the best part of the movie really was their dynamic. I was actually genuinely pretty compelled. Because the thing is, like, Bixby is kind of doesn't give a shit. Like, he respects her, but he doesn't really look at her as like a romantic partner, and she definitely looks at him as a potential partner, and there's that kind of back and forth there. But essentially, the plot of the movie is that these three kids, through some convoluted means that I don't even really fully understand, some legal bullshit, they end up in the possession and the care of Bill Bixby's character. And it's one of those things where at first he's not happy about it at all. He's very annoyed by it. But then, of course, by the end of the movie, it's a found family, and aren't they cute together? And he buys them as many apple dumplings as they want, so that's why they're the Apple Dumpling Gang. Yeah, it's fine in that regard. The kids are like very much fine. I think the little girl playing the actress playing the little girl is a very precocious, like in a kind of a cloying way. Slim Pickens is the bad guy, but Dragon, I love this analogy. I'm pretty proud of it. You know how much we literally made a meal out of the whole, like, it's a 72-ounce steak and I'm eating it. I'm eating that scenery. Here it's very much like, you know what? You see those leaves on that scenic tree? Just give me some leaves. I'll just have a salad.
I want a salad with all the dressings.
No, it's not even with all the just like, nah, I just want some salad. I'll just take a salad. I'm full.
What dressing? Whatever you have.
I'm on a diet. So yeah, I like between Slim Pickens kind of being weirdly subdued and Don Knotts being the straight man of the two. That's a disappointment, but I was genuinely kind of pulled in by the Bill Bixby romance. That was kind of what carried the movie for me. I wouldn't like say like go out and watch this right away. Oh my god! But if you're looking for some Bill Bixby charm, this is a good. Like I'll say this much: I am going to watch the Apple Dumpling Gang Rides again, specifically because I want to see more of this couple. And who knows? Maybe Don Knotts will be a little bit more broadly comedic in the sequel.
See, how watchable is Bill Bixby, Tiki?
What?
How watchable is Bill Bixby, Tiki? I mean, come on.
I mean, he is very watchable.
Right? Isn't he charming? Don't you want to give that guy a show? Don't you want to give that guy several shows? Isn't he so magnetic?
All right.
Don't you want to see him be a magician fighting crime?
All right, best and worst, Dragon, really quick.
All right. Let's see. Best, I'm gonna say was I'm gonna say Doc of Chucky because I really wanted to see it. So I'm gonna say that was the best. Not to say the other Casa Bonita Mi Amor wasn't good, but just anyway, Doc of Chucky. Worst was probably gonna be. I'm trying to see if I even had it worse. Honestly, this was. I mean, I don't think I had a worse this one. I don't think I had a bad one.
No, bullshit. Pick one.
All right. Okay, fine. Leap of faith.
There you go. All right. And let's face it, I know it doesn't really count, but Cobra Kai season 6 part 2 is easily the worst thing that either of us watched this month.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I couldn't just pick it, Tiki. Yeah.
Okay, for me, best. I know this is a really strong month. Like, honestly, as far as stuff in theaters, it was a little weak. But like the stuff that I did see in theaters, I really enjoyed. Man, I'm torn between Anora and Why Tu Mama Tambien. Wicked was also very good. I think I'm going to have to go with Anora, but that very much might be recency bias. I am so torn here. Because Why Tu Mama Tambien really did stick with me, and I think it will stick with me. But I think Anora is going to stick with me, too, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Anora at the Oscars. So, yeah, I'm going to go Anora. And, again, the definite... I think Wicked earns the bronze in this point. I think all three of them are very, very strong movies. Worst, it's kind of between Apple Dumpling Gang and The Tall Grass and Woman of the Hour. Unfortunately, I feel bad doing this, but I'm going to have to go with Woman of the Hour. It's not terrible. It's not a bad movie. It's kind of the one that I struggled to get through the most. And like Apple Dumpling Gang is just kind of like vintage Disney 70s silliness. And it does have some fun cast members. Obviously, In the Tall Grass is kind of propelled up by Patrick Wilson. And, I like Anna Kendrick. Like I said, I just don't necessarily think she's doing her... She's good in this. I just don't think she's at her best in this. I think she's more accomplished in the directing here. So, yeah, that'll be it. All righty. So, yeah, definitely a fun one this month. Big thanks to Little Blue, Keeper Colby, Code Gias. Did anyone else? Sophia Pantoja briefly popped up just to make a little quick cameo. I think that's it. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Dragon. This has been a lot of fun. Okay. Well, folks, we've waxed on long enough. And now it's time to put the pen down. Until next time, when we return for another fitting chapter in our
Movie Memoirs.
Yeah.